Recording in progress.
Hey, Star
we
Wars
have it.
fans, guess what? We're coming in hot. We're coming in live. We're coming right at you. Bill O'Reilly style. We're doing it now. We're doing it live. This is Joe in the Rule of the Galaxy podcast, and almost everybody's here. It's almost the whole crew, but this was a special show tonight. I gave the regular crew the night off. They actually all were kind of upset at me because they wanted to be here, but I thought too many voices can make this maybe a little too crazy. So I said, take the night off. You guys cover me from time to time, and I'm bringing in well, part of the Georgia Star Wars Mafia, as my guys like to call it. We have some of the best of the guys who've been doing this forever, and one more will be here shortly. We're going to start off with one of our regulars, one of our guys who has been with us a lot, and that's only because you like him so much, Mr. Scott Ryfun. How you doing, Scott?
You're going to me. Well, so those were the last words you're going to be uttering tonight during the program, is what you're telling me.
And go.
Now that I'm on, it's over.
Hey, we had a good time talking about Indiana Jones recently.
Yes, we had a wonderful. I actually went back and listened to that one, and I don't usually listen to me on podcasts.
Hey, I got a lot of people telling me they really enjoyed it. That we just did the one-on-one Indiana Jones, all that kind of stuff. I was really happy to hear that, and we had fun, and we enjoyed the movie, so it was a good thing to talk about. And we don't have any more Indiana Jones that we know of to talk about. So, but also joining us until our other guest arrives is somebody another one of those gentlemen that got me started, my son started in wanting to do this podcast thing, and he's taking a little bit break, but he is back, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Riley Blanton. Riley, how are you?
Hey, what's going on, Joe? Yeah, thanks for having me. It has been a hot minute, and I am glad to be back in the world of Star Wars podcastings, kind of. And I'm also glad to be back in America, dang it. So, yes, I'm excited.
So
I'm excited to be here. Thanks.
I did want to clear up a few things because we do have you and Scott on with us right now. One, I hear you guys got to get together, or did you get to get
Well, we wanted to
and
plan our approach for how we were going to gang up on Steve. So I
drove
drove
over. So that's good, though. You can talk about that in a second, but I think
the target is only 2 meters wide.
That's right.
You're probably right. Well, no, 2 meters wide. That's pretty. But the other thing was Scott and I actually let the cat out of the bag that I was holding on some of the nice material. That's the only thing I've ever won from a podcast before. When I entered your contest and got some pins and some paraphernalia and some books, Scott let me know he was not real happy about that, Riley.
I see what you're doing here, Joe. You're trying to cause a wedge between us. We were going to approach with a united front.
That's right.
And causing tension. Listen, I said it on Twitter. I'll repeat it right here. And I don't even need to say anything. I just, for those of you on the call, just look behind Scott Ryfun's face right now, and you will see a library, the envy of which would be one Jocasta knew. It is a veritable trove of Star Wars paraphernalia, which was infamously dumped on the ground, by the way, at one point. I just want to, for the record, the evidence exists on the internet of Scott literally dumping all of the Star Wars books on his shelf onto the ground. So would I give my precious hard-earned Star Wars collection to this man?
I was being illustrative. I also set some people off. You remember that was when Disney, you know the story of this, when Disney sold, I was actually hanging out with some buddies of mine the night we found out that Disney sold in 2012, October 30th, 2012. That Disney bought Star Wars, bought Lucasfilm. And the first thing I did was I turned to those guys and I said, the EU is toast.
Yep.
Because I said, they're going to make 3 new movies. They're not going to tell people, okay, so while you were gone, Chewbacca died. He got hit by a moon. Don't worry about it. Han and Leia, they're married. They had 2 kids. They had another kid. Don't worry about that. Oh, Luke started. He's married too. He's got a kid. Just don't worry about any of this. But anyway, and they couldn't. There's no way they could do it. So I said, this
Jason and Jaina's best friend is Lobaka, and
yeah, and it just ain't gonna work.
And
so I when they finally did it, I said, well, here's, symbolically, here's what happened. And I made a video where I had a continuity shelf where I had all the books in paperback in chronological order. And I'm weird that way. Like, you have the paperbacks in continuity order, but I keep the hardcovers in release order. I know.
Oh.
But I took all the things and I dumped the whole continuity shelf on the floor. But boy, it set some people off. I started getting all these, dude, you're destroying those books. Why are you doing that? And it's like, I was just making an illustration. It's okay. They're fine. They're okay. And I put them all back, Why are you so butthurt? I wasn't butthurt. I was just
It does look great. And I wasn't causing a wedge because I do want the unified front. But first I'm going to check because I believe our other friend in the Star Wars community is with us, but I'm not hearing him. Are you guys hearing Mr. Glosson right now?
I think he's.
Hey, everybody!
Okay, all right.
It's me.
Okay. I don't know if I want to be a part of this.
Steve, it says you're connecting with audio now, Steve, so we will be glad to hear your voice again after we just heard that other rendition a moment ago.
Was someone doing my voice?
Well, I figured, I owe you a few hundred.
Is this a turnabout's fair play kind of
Yes,
thing?
It wasn't
exactly.
me. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and since Steve's here now, I'll let him know. Steve, we're live. We're going. For everybody,
sorry I'm late, guys.
That's okay. For everybody who's listening in and watching on YouTube, not right now, but in the next day or so, Mr. Steve Glosson is the final piece of this puzzle tonight. And now we have quite a bit of the Georgia Star Wars Mafia, as Alfie, Brent, and D-Doc like to say.
Well, let me just say this really quickly. And I am thrilled, and I have been thrilled all day long, because here's what's happening right now. And I mean everything I'm about to say absolutely sincerely with no irony whatsoever. First of all, Joey Marinara, you guys on Rule the Galaxy, I feel like you are a spiritual descendant of what Riley Blanton started with the Star Wars Report. I feel like you guys bring the topics and the discussion and all those kinds of things with what's going on. Your consistency is on point, and you guys are so good at just being there and letting your fandom just fly, and just the different perspectives on fandom that come about. And then to know that I'm here with Ryfun finally again, and again, no irony, no nothing. Ryfun is a professional. I wish I had just a thimbles full of the knowledge and the recall he has when it comes to all things pop culture. But not only that, but the way that he communicates it so well. He does a great job with everything he does. And I feel like it's like reunited, and it feels so good because Riles Blanton Esquire is here. And Riley, listen, watching Riley grow literally in so many ways with what he did with Star Wars Report. Riley was always a man of vision and preparation, and he stayed on the cutting edge of everything that was going on just in the social media sphere of things, and fearless. He was fearless. They'd go to cons and they'd just be like, "Oh, Anthony Daniels, let's sit down and talk." Let's just, and it might have been fearlessness that came with youthfulness, but at the same time, it was something to behold these guys as they found their place in fandom and found their niche with Riley and Bethany and Mark Hurleman, and then all the people that he brought along eventually with him doing great things. And so, look, I realize this tonight, and this is the most verbose I'm going to be. I'm an ant amongst giants, which is weird when you're as fat as I am to say that kind of thing.
Well, those were kind words, one for us and Riley and I almost said Steve Scott. Look at him. Steve walks in and he just lays down the gauntlet, and with praise and everything. You guys said you wanted to.
Now we all have to be nice.
Yeah, no, that's the attempt. That was the I'm going to walk in and disarm them, but it's not going to work.
There was no irony or no plan. I sincerely wanted to say that so that everyone watching or listening knows just who you have online. Because listen, honestly, what Riley did with the Star Wars Report was something really special. And there was that same, just go after it, stay consistent, do it week after week after week, and just do it well. And that's why I really do feel like in some ways you guys are a spiritual descendant of what the Star Wars report was. And because what they would do is if there was no news, they'd be like, well, bring some topics to the table and let's just chat about these topics. And they would, go off and just like you guys all have your niche on Rule the Galaxy, you had Hurleman out, in the woods somewhere in the north, northwest,
Pacific Northwest.
He's like, well, in Legends, like it was all Legends for him. It was all Legends. Bethany would always bring it back to Lord of the Rings somehow. And Riley, this ringmaster, just doing these things and making stuff happen. And so Riley, that's why I'm so glad to see you. But what I want anything else, and I'm sorry to just walk in and do what I always do and just be that guy that takes over everything. What I want so much is to hear you say those words whereby you welcome us all to the
well, I guess, yeah. Okay. So let's kick it off then. We'll make this a Rule the Galaxy special. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Please delete as appropriate.
There you go. That's what I
now
want.
we're podcasting.
Well,
now we started.
Gamsamnida.
I will say this. When Scott had mentioned that he had been speaking with Riley, and then I had seen Riley pop up here or there a little bit on social media recently, and I thought, wow, we were just talking to Stephen Kent, and he said, hey, Riley and I are starting to do some things together. I thought, why not see if we can bring these?
What is wrong with me? Why isn't Riley talking to me? I don't get it.
Well, I just thought
everybody else.
As Steve was saying so many nice things, these three guys right here, and everybody who's listened to Rule of the Galaxy over the past 3 years now knows that these three guys were some of the main reasons as to why my son and I started this show. And the reason it's still been going consistently for this time frame is because not only were you guys the kind of people that we admired what you did, we liked the product that you put out there and the content, but then you've all been so easily accessible and said, hey, you guys want to talk? We'll come on and talk. And even Riley, before the Star Wars report ended, was nice enough to say, hey, Joe, I'll come on and do a show with you. And that was just like, wow, that means a lot to me that you would do that. And so I appreciate all of you guys. I think that's me getting that out of the way to just say, you all mean a lot to me, to my son. And you guys were a lot of the impetus for why Rule the Galaxy is still doing what it's doing. So thank you very much.
Joe, let me say this, and please take this for all the seriousness that I intend this. You're not special. We would be like, and I will not speak for the other guys, but you're like, well, would you like to come talk about Star Wars? Okay. If I were not on your program talking about Star Wars, I would still be sitting in this room, in this chair, talking about Star Wars. I would just be doing it alone and it wouldn't be recorded. So, I mean, you're nice. Don't get me wrong. But, I mean, it's not any extra effort that I'm putting on some headphones, and that's about it. So,
Well, hey, I appreciate that. The headphone effort means the world to me. And so, you guys, one thing that I wanted to talk to all three of you about. So this is good. We're all here now. We can get going. At one point in time now, each of you has either walked away or taken a hiatus from doing this on your own, whether it was Star Wars Report, whether it was My Star Wars Story, whether it was Geek Out Loud, who, I mean, Steve, you never stopped doing it, but you did take some breaks where you're like, I have to think about what I want to do, right? And how difficult was it for you? Because I'm at a point, even just 3 years in, to where I tell the guys, hey, guys, you're a good crew, my Rule of the Galaxy crew. You guys do a great job. I always say we're not the Rolling Stones where Mick Jagger leads the way and you've got all these backup kind of people. We're the Beatles, right? I tell them all the time. One of us can be the lead guy at any time on this, and they do a great job and do that for me. But it gives me a chance to like go refresh my batteries, take a week off, not have to worry about running a show.
And if all of you want the week off, D-Doc can actually build some replacement guys for you, and you won't have to worry about it.
This is true. This is true. But thinking about all the things that you've done and the times when you've stepped away, Riley, I'll lead right into you first because I've been listening to your new show, and you've mentioned that on there, and the walking away and wanting to have that itch to come back. I'll start with you. What was it like to say I put all that time into the Star Wars report and to break away and now say I still have a little bit of that passion in me that wants to do this?
No, sure. It's actually pretty simple. I can actually draw some direct inspiration in a way from my buddy Steve, because I actually distinctly remember you have to rewind a little bit in Fandom, but I think it was a lot of the same reasons. I remember Steve going on a hiatus for Geek Out Loud after I think it was Celebration 5 or 6. And I remember listening to that episode and in my own kind of heartbreaking in a way, just hearing Steve talk about how the creative process of doing the show was overshadowing the things that brought him joy in the first place. And I just remember distinctly, I wanted more than anything. I wasn't mad at all that Geek Out Loud had stopped. And Geek Out Loud was like, I still remember. It's funny, Steve, you said so many really nice things about me, but I still remember being 17, 18 and like discovering what a podcast was. Like I bought a PSP with my summer lawn mowing money and learned that you could like incorporate RSS feeds. And I immediately just started searching for what of the 15 geek, not Star Wars, but like 15 geek related podcasts. And Geek Out Loud was one of those first ones. So it was a part of like the joy that Steve brings to the world of geekdom. Like I'd never seen Muppets in my life growing up. And I became a Muppets fan just listening to Steve talk about the Muppets. And by the way, that tells you how little podcast content was out there, because I was like, well, there's nothing else to listen to. I'm going to listen to this entire 2.5 hour Geek Out Loud episode about the Muppets, of which I never grew up watching, and in the process completely fall in love with it, to which to this point, I still think that the Muppets Treasure Island is better than any of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, and I dare say I love those movies. So
Straight up.
Shiver my timbers. Anyway,
hey, same composer, by the way.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, wasn't it Klaus Badelt or someone who was like doing the music?
No, Zimmer.
Was it Zimmer?
Zimmer did the music. So I guess Klaus Badelt did the first Pirates, but Zimmer did the.
It's like an early Zimmer
Badelt
too.
and Zimmer together, I think, on the first Pirates.
Interesting.
So.
Yeah. But I say that because
if you listen to some of that score, you can hear what's coming down the road for Pirates.
Oh, for sure. Especially because I'm a big Hans Zimmer guy. But we can do that. We can go.
Which of his 3 notes is your favorite?
Talking about that Batman theme.
Listen, but I say all that to say that I think when I heard that episode of Steve taking a break, those same emotions, I think from a very similar place, is where I realized in my case that like a chapter had closed and like a chapter should have closed a year or two before it closed. And that's because I think that I had said and done, I had to recognize within myself that with the Star Wars report, there's a lot of years and years of hustle of making it the show that I wanted it to be and pouring a huge part of myself into that. And I came essentially to a fork in the road where either Star Wars was going to be the lifelong passion project that I always kept in the back of my mind, like just out of eyesight to the left of like the I could have been like, could be the famous successful podcaster that 17-year-old Riley listened to the Force Cast and Geek Out Loud and wanted to be. And that was a very specific vision that I was chasing for years and years and years, born out of my love of these stories. But I think the reason I ended Star Wars Report as it was just a recognition of that it was time for me to accept Star Wars for what it is for me, which is it is a story that has shaped the way I look at the world. And it's okay that my goal was no longer to have a successful, quote unquote, whatever that means, Star Wars podcast, but instead give that idea and that dream up, because I had to recognize that the state of fandom and the franchise, if I kept going down that path, it was just going to end with me probably hating Star Wars, if not hating myself more for it. So I think I embraced that, and if like there's a long monologue that could be had that I won't do here, but the final episode of Star Wars Report is just called Goodbye, and it's a 45-minute monologue of me describing exactly what I'm talking about. But I think now there's sort of a sense of peace about that, because I spent a year tour in Korea where I was essentially not online at all. And that was very helpful for me to recognize that I still certainly have passion to have creative outlets of different kinds. It's just a very different approach. And I think nothing has felt more stark than my experience at San Diego Comic-Con. I was talking to Scott about this when we were having dinner the other day, because it just felt weird, like almost sort of out of body experience, because all the sort of natural instincts of like, I got to get this interview or this coverage or live tweet this panel, like all of those like naturally kick in, and it almost forced me to recognize, no, that's no longer like the expression of my fandom, and instead I'm excited to kind of choose that approach a little bit differently these days, just recognizing the state of fandom, of which I think most people who listen to Rule the Galaxy, I know this is something you guys talk about a lot, kind of recognize. But yeah, I think that's the best way I can describe it.
Okay, and before we go to Mr. Ryfun, I will ask you, and I know you're taking a sip there, give a quick shout out. The new podcast, the things you and Stephen Kent are doing, for those who don't know.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's a collaboration between me and Stephen Kent. Here's the thing. I'm getting really good at ending Star Wars podcasts. This is what I'm realizing.
Kids say collab these days. You don't say collaboration. Sorry.
It's a collab, a hashtag collab.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just watch our TikTok. That doesn't exist. No, but essentially I've discovered that I'm good at ending Star Wars podcasts, because I was like the I joined Locked Arms with Steven to do a year of production of the Beltway Banthas podcast, which turned out to be his last year, as he also kind of closed that chapter of the life too. But we really enjoyed our time working together and talking about Star Wars, and then like stories that shaped us in a more kind of real I don't know what's the way to phrase it, in a way that sort of it shapes our lives and our worldview today, and kind of talking about the way that Star Wars, or whether it's Lord of the Rings, the way these stories kind of shape our identity and offer us, I think, a way to have a moral view of the world, and the way that you can actually experience a better life for it. And I think most of us who are nerds recognize that, but I've really enjoyed kind of actually getting into the weeds on that. So that's what our new project is. It's called Walk the Way. It's a YouTube channel, and then also a podcast that we're doing. And it's really based on our ongoing writing, which is at the Substack, which is thisistheway.substack.com. So Stephen and I merged forces. He's been doing it for a while, but now he and I are the primary contributors on weekly essays, essentially about popular culture, but through the lens of faith, of stoicism, of philosophy, kind of digging into the hero's journey is kind of the common theme. I was actually just finishing tonight, before we hopped on, I was writing an essay on Andor. I went to a fan panel at Comic-Con that was really well done. Jawa James, I don't know if you know him on Twitter, but he put together a really good panel discussing the Andor show, and so that's kind of the way we approach the new show. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, or if you're interested, if you ever listen to Beltway Banthas or Star Wars Report and want to hear our thoughts on those kinds of things, it's pretty simple. You just go to thisistheway.substack.com. There we go. There's the plug.
You got it. And I listened to the first 3 episodes of the podcast today. It was really good. So I'm excited for you guys to do that, because not only are you a great person, but Steven's been great to come on the show and be involved with what we do at Rule the Galaxy as well. Really enjoy what he does. So Scott, I'll jump to you, because you've been teasing me on the last few Rule the Galaxies that my Star Wars story is not dead, and that there are people, or maybe future interviews or things that you might do, and bring it back, dust it off the shelf, and let us all enjoy those again. What do we have? Any more rumors? Anything like that?
Are we still recording? I'm sorry. I got started with I got started with my Star Wars story because I wanted to celebrate fandom. And then I spent a couple of years doing my Star Wars story, and I realized I really don't like fandom. So I kind of gave up on that for a while. Now, no, it's really interesting when you're doing all this, because you have people like my Star Wars story was very successful right out of the gate. And because of that, I had a lot of people reaching out to me, wanting to do episodes. They wanted to tell their story, which I thought was great compliment. And then those people, like, they suddenly learn about like what you say when you're not talking Star Wars, and they immediately hate you. And it just, that was kind of a bit of shell shock to me, because I thought it was kind of, I'll play on this playground for a while with somebody else, and then I'll come play on the playground with you guys for a while, and then I'll go play on a different playground with somebody else, and we can all play. When we're on the same playground, we can play together. But there's a large segment of fandom that doesn't want you on their playground in certain instances. And that was demoralizing to me. It really was. I also had about 4 or 5 episodes that I had recorded the interviews for and had not edited them. It's a very edit heavy show. I lost a hard drive. Steve knows the pain of that. And yeah, and I got I think 2 of them recovered. But that was it. And so
wasn't
that
David
was
Collins one of the ones?
well,
he was
David Collins was a different freak accident. David Collins Part 2 was a different freak accident. And but that was not particularly one that gave me a lot of uplift either. But so I kind of had a thing where I was really disenchanted with fandom, and it didn't have anything to do with Disney Star Wars and George Lucas Star Wars. It really had to do with something deeper, where there was just hatred and rejection of people different from you. And that really shocked me, because again, I thought this was kind of where people of different backgrounds and different thoughts and minds could all come together and discuss this thing that they love.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I thought Steve has told us that a number of times, but
hey,
so there was that.
When you get out of the boundaries of Geek Out Loud, I can't promise anything.
Yeah, well, yeah, I thought Star Wars was in that boundary. And so, I had that, I had the fandom thing, I had the hard drive loss. And I started to experience the thing where I felt like I was stagnating in my profession. Like I do a talk show every day, and back then it was 3 hours a day. It's 4 hours a day now. And there were days when I would finish for the day and I would just sit back and I would go, is that really the best you could have done? Was that the best you could have brought to it? And if you had not been up all night last night editing this podcast that is not your career, that is not your profession, that is not where your future is, would you have done better? Could you have done better? And those things kind of added up for me to say, you know what, I'm going to back burner this for a while until professionally I'm where I'd rather be. And since then, it's grown. The show's grown by an hour. I've added new stations. I just found out Tavis Smiley has entered syndication, and they made a big deal. He's in syndication. He's in 2 cities. He's in 2 markets. I'm in 2 cities. So I'm just as syndicated as Tavis Smiley now. So, I think it has paid off. But there is always something in my mind that says, I do want to go finish some of these things that were unfinished. There are still people I'd like to talk to. But at the same time, I also kind of have to wrestle with, I've learned there are people I don't want to talk to. My old mission used to be, I want to tell everybody's Star Wars story. Nowadays, there's some people's Star Wars stories just need to shut the hell up. So, one day, but clearly I'm not over it yet.
Right.
Well, I will say you've done a marvelous job of becoming a pretty worldwide guest when it comes to Star Wars related podcasts. I've seen podcasts where I'm like, I didn't even know this podcast existed. Oh, Ryfun's on it. It must be all right. I'll go check it out.
Yeah.
Right. So you've become quite the guest without doing my Star Wars story anymore.
It comes in waves. It comes in like there'll be times. And when the whole fandom thing, when the whole really became disillusioned with fandom thing, there were people who had previously had me on who suddenly decided they don't have me on anymore.
That's a bummer.
And yeah, it really was disappointing. It was, and Steve, I'm still waiting for that invitation again. If you ever change your mind about all that.
I believe I was told the door was always open for Steve Glosson.
Too much controversy for Scott Ryfun.
Okay, all right. Well, I appreciate that, Scott. Steve, how about you? I mean, we talked about it briefly. Riley talked about it. You took a little hiatus, but I tell you what, the shows you've come back with and the way you've been doing it with your 3+ hour episodes,
right?
They have been a ton of fun, and I mean, I look forward to those every time. When I hear that,
can I step all over Steve for a second here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
Can I tell you what I think makes that work? Steve is at his best when Steve is seized by passion of the moment. Steve is seized by kind of an improvisation. Steve and I did an episode. Steve, and I know you remember this.
Mm-hmm.
Steve and I were visiting in lovely Hazelhurst, Georgia, and we were eating dinner at
the Huddle House.
At the Huddle House. That's exactly right. We were eating dinner and we started arguing. And we were going back and forth. And it's funny and it was good. And Steve was just like, you know what? We're not wasting this. Let's go right now. And we left and went right to his house and fired it up and did this really fun episode. And I think the difference is Wednesday at 8, Geek Out Loud, or man, I got this great idea. I'm going now.
Yeah.
And to me, those are the best Steves.
I think when I started doing podcasting, when those of us that were in my age range and the people that were around the same time that started doing it back in the Wild West days, when you had to create your own RSS feed and, plug it into your, this was before everything was like plug and play, the way it is now. Had to figure out how can I record a Skype call? How can I be like, I was doing a Smallville podcast with my friend Derek. We were literally on the phone recording our ends of our conversations. I would send it to him and he would put those two waveforms together to bring the show together. And I wanted to be Scott Ryfun. I didn't know Scott at the time, but I wanted to do what Scott does. I grew up loving talk radio. I grew up loving morning talk radio, just the zany zoo, like the stuff that people make fun of. I loved the zoo crew kind of thing. The friends sitting around talking and just having a good time. And I knew what I enjoyed. And I thought, you know what, I should do this about Star Wars. But at the time you had Jason and Jimmy Mac doing it. And this podcast sphere was so small. I said, there's already someone doing what I would do or what I wish I could do if, Jason and Pete and then Jason and Jimmy Mac did it. And so I said, why don't I just do geek stuff in general? And what I was doing was a knee-jerk reaction to the Ain't It Cool news forums of the world and the Force.net forums of the world, where everything was just a whine fest and a crap fest on everything. And so that's what Safe Place to Geek Out was born out of.
And who can crap on it the first?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to have a show where I could tell you X-Men 3 wasn't that bad. It wasn't great, but it wasn't that bad. Here's what's good about it. But so what happens is you start to pour yourself into that. And really the early days of Geek Out Loud are kind of like the present day Geek Out Loud, where, when I can get around to it, I will, and I'll spend 3 hours doing it. But then I got hooked up with the Smallville podcast and everything. And we started doing stuff because we had really good chemistry and there was just a lot going on. Then I actually ended up getting to know the guys at Wars Radio and enjoying them. And Riley mentioned Celebration 5. And there's moments in my life where I look back and I'm like, what a fool. And I joke with Riley about this all the time. And he'll tell you I was perfectly nice to him, but we were standing in line waiting for the opening ceremony. And I'm sitting there holding court with like all the people that I think are just, all about Steve. And because I'm all about Steve. And here comes this young kid up to me and he's like, hey man, I just listened to the Big Honkin' Show on the way here. And I'm like, thanks buddy, good to see you. And just turn around and go back to what I was doing, and like absolutely blew off Riley Blanton, one of the greatest people in the whole wide world. It's still like, it's one of those moments that like still embarrass me to think about to this day. And so after coming home from Celebration, some things went on in my personal life. And it was just a reevaluation of priorities. It was like, what do I really need to be doing? And this is not it. At the same time, I was actually on local radio on Saturday mornings for an hour doing the Big Honkin' Show, having a blast doing that. But I'm like, this can't be sustained. I can't keep doing this. I have to now focus in on what matters most, and that is faith in my life and at the time my job, and getting myself straightened out, getting my head in a good headspace again. Because again, like Riley said, it became all about who do you know, who can I grab, what can I do? And every time I'd go see a movie, it's like, all right, what am I going to say about this? What am I going to do? And it had kind of lost its fun, but I had also kind of lost my way in that. And also, when you're not making money, when it's a hobby that becomes that much work, it's like, what am I really doing here? And you really have to evaluate the fullness of what's going on. So I took off at that point, literally a year almost of not really podcasting. I came back for the finale of Smallville late in May. So about 9 months I was gone. And then after that, we started kind of promoting the return of Geek Out Loud. And I came back, but I kept everything in perspective. And then it wasn't long after that I started, I don't want to say building a community, but like Riley turned me on to just about everything that I ever did new. That's why I'm glad Riley's back stateside, because I'm really hoping and praying that he'll send me a text about, hey, there's this new thing you should try. I'll come show you how to do it. So I think Riley might have turned me on to Mixler. I know he turned me on to Patreon. It was just there, but I started doing these live shows, started having, and that's what I wanted to do. I love the audience interaction. And we started doing the Big Honkin' Show. Well, we started with Ustream first, and then Mixler, and then all kinds of stuff. But anyhow, and so it was that by the time I moved out of Hazelhurst, I had developed a mini network of shows that just kind of ran the gamut of the stuff I enjoyed. Now we're back down to Geek Out Loud and Big Honkin' Show. And what I've discovered is like Ryfun said, I don't know how much I like fandom. And when it comes to Star Wars, like, Ahsoka's coming up. Am I excited about it? No. Will I watch it? Yes. Do I hope it's good? Yes. I'm not one of these guys that watches anything hoping for it to fail. I'm not rooting for Disney to fail. I'm not rooting for Lucasfilm to fail. What I'm rooting for is for them to do better and to be better and to be consistently good and to push the medium forward the way that Lucas did to do. I'm rooting for them to be Lucasfilm. And so if there's something that doesn't really fire me up, Andor per se, I wasn't really fired up about Andor. I'm like, why go online and trash it? Why do what some of these other people are doing, who I would probably be associated with if you ask folks. They would say, well, that's Steve, he's like this guy and this guy. But I also love doing the Big Honkin' Show. But it was the same issue that, Ryfun had. It's like I was doing it just weekly. It wasn't even a daily thing for me. But I would do it, and it would take up almost all of my Friday, which was like just one day off I have during the week. Sometimes, if I'm lucky, I have that day off. And I was just like, I just couldn't keep up doing everything, full-time, marriage, all that good stuff. So I had to figure out a way to scale everything down. By that point, most of the shows had gone away. Now all of the shows have gone away except Geek Out Loud and the Big Honkin' Show. But I love the Big Honkin' Show so much. Like I think that's one of the things that has surprised me. Is I love doing just the zany, silly, stupid stuff that maybe only I find funny, getting to throw in a Uranus joke every now and again. And so what I've learned is I've got to do this in such a way that I enjoy it, that I can do well. And I hate, maybe that's a strong word. I don't feel like I work well in a 45 minutes and out kind of setting. I don't think I work well in an hour setting. If I have to do some timing down, I can do that, if I have to. But I don't like knowing that when I go on someone's show, it's like, just as I feel like I'm getting wound up. All right, thanks everyone for joining us. And I'm like, whoa, I've got 1,000 more things. And so with Geek Out Loud, I get to get all that out, and then now I'm starting throwing the Big Honkin' Show. And so I really think it comes down to, this thing is it is an extension of what I always wanted to be as a child, of what I always wanted to be growing up. What I always thought I might be able to do is sit behind a microphone and talk and communicate. But this thing is not my job. This thing is not, this thing is not what puts food on the table or keeps the lights on. And so I have to make sure that it's all in the proper perspective, and then I'm not neglecting my wife, I'm not neglecting my congregation, I'm not neglecting myself to do this, so it's been fun. I want to do more. And that's how I think I know that it's really fun, because I sit around a lot and think, oh, I want to do this more. I want to do this more. I want to do this more. So now, rather than, okay, well, I've got to record over here, I've got to get this done. Now I'm at a place in my headspace where it's like, oh, I need to sit down behind a microphone and just fire up Mixler and just go for 3 hours, and
Yes.
and see what happens. And I just, so that's how I know that it's a good thing.
Well, good. Well, I, just like tonight's show, went into it with really no agenda, right? My agenda was to get 3 people on that I respect and that I find very entertaining and everything like that. And what we've discussed on Rule of the Galaxy is, Brent says it all the time, whether there's one person listening or thousands of people listening, if we're having fun as friends and getting a chance to get together and just laugh, make each other, tell stories, things like that. And yes, Star Wars is wrapped into that, and it's kind of that common bond. Then it's worth it to us to do it, right? It should be something that you're enjoying, and it should be something that you feel like something positive is coming out of it. And whether that's making yourself happy or making other people happy by listening, I think that plays a role in all of it. So I appreciate you guys going through all that, because I know there are people who listen to Rule of the Galaxy who, even though you guys have had bigger, better shows than we've ever had, they probably, some of them have said, who's this guy? What's this? I want to know what he does and all that. So I do, because Riley is on more of a limited time frame here, I wanted to hop back to Riley before he has to
I'm
break
really
away.
like, I'm a 45 minutes and out kind of guy. So you got
yeah. So
just when Steve was getting wound up too.
Wound up.
yeah.
Here goes Riley.
Yep, and as soon as Riley's gone, that's it, Steve. Show's over. No,
I know that's how you roll, Joe.
I'm not going to do that to you, Steve. I'm not doing that to you.
Yep.
But Riley, looking back, like you said, you started off as a teenager doing this, and now you're a married man, and you've traveled the world and all these things. Are there some
of the world?
Are there some favorite? Are there some favorite things where you still sit and think about between Scott or Steve, memories at either events or shows you've done or things like that?
Riley. Don't do it.
You want to share that would still make you laugh today?
I have 3 words for you.
Okay.
I just want you to watch Steve's face while I say these 3 words. Is 7, 8, 9.
Oh.
Yeah.
Drop the mic and walk away. These
Yeah.
are the famous last words of one Steve Glosson at Celebration 6
Yep.
in Orlando, a mere 2-3 months before the announcement of
what's
Disney
crazy,
buying Lucasfilm.
and what's crazy, Riles, is as the time went on, we found out that they wanted
That's what they were doing.
that.
Totally.
That's what they were at Celebration discussing. Yeah.
I don't know why. That's the first one that jumped to my mind. Because you know what, Joe, it represents, I think, that peak of the convention era. Like, because I think for me, my fandom is very different than the gentleman to my left on this Zoom call, because my fandom sort of exploded at the discovery of podcasts and the discovery of online fandom, which is why I think the sort of fall of online fandom is almost more personal to me / heartbreaking to me, because I don't have that period. Because by the time I was self-aware, the prequels were coming out. Like, Star Wars was in the zeitgeist. And so I remember, like, all my friends were really excited and ready to go for Revenge of the Sith when it came out. And then I remember hearing about this, like, Clone Wars show, this animated show that was going to be out, and hearing that it was a movie. And that's when I discovered the Force Cast, which is, like, of that era. I think you could name every single Star Wars podcast that started anywhere between like 2007 and 2012. That was our inspiration. I've told Jimmy Mack to his face that, like, that there was something about my discovery of not just Star Wars podcasting, which is incredible, but Steve, in a way, I think this was my introduction to the idea of talk radio in this weird, perverse way, because I didn't grow up with it. Yeah. I discovered talk radio, like the format.
You did, but it was in, like, Farsi.
Deep cut. But I guess that the 789 moment, it just it was the interplay, the elation of like we were just hanging out at a Star Wars convention. There were no new movies coming out. The biggest thing was what's his face's animated comedy skit show.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Seth
Not Donald Glover,
Green.
Yeah, Seth Green.
Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but that was the thing. That was like George Lucas came out to that panel and was part of the announcement.
It's funny. It's hilarious.
It's gonna be great.
Yeah, it's wonderful. But do you know that story, Joe? Do you know what he's talking about? What took place?
This is true. I'm providing zero context. I'm doing
I'm going to guess you turned to him
jokes.
before anything was announced and said they're going to announce 789.
Well, it was Celebration 6, and so it's 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And it's August. Was it like Augustish?
It was August. It was
and
August.
We're hanging out and we're getting ready for the big closing ceremonies panel, which is, they've been hyping this big announcement and everything. Well, there's no way on God's green earth that they're going to do 7, 8, and 9. That George is going to do 7, 8, and 9. But that kind of begins. And if you can start that rumble and get people built up, and so I really was trying to convince people that I truly thought he was going to announce 7, 8, and 9. And so that kind of got to be my bit for the whole weekend was, it's going to be 7, 8, and 9. He's just going to, and then it became this whole thing of like, he's going to step up to the whole panel, just going to be George Lucas coming out front and center. Everyone settles down. He goes 7, 8, 9, and drops the mic and walks away. And that's the panel. And everyone erupts. 2 months later, I get a text from my friend Derek. He's like, $4 billion. I'm like, what about $4 billion? He's like, that's how much Lucas just sold it to Disney for. I'm like, what? He's like, and 7, 8, and 9 are coming. I'm like, what? And so next thing I know, Riley's like, you're a prophet. I'm like, I'm a prophet. but we were sitting and standing in line, just waiting. And it was just this whole thing of, and Riley was like running up and down the way, talking to people, getting people on mic and just bringing people from around the place in. And
hustling, of course, because of course I was.
Yeah. But it was great. It was great fun. That's a great story. And then of course, there were times where Riley and Bethany were down at my house, just chilling and hanging, and we'd record till all hours of the night and just, fun times. Like
First time I watched Raiders.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, but I guess, Joe, that represents, which Steve did a much better job than me actually giving some context, which is why I'm outstripped in both professionalism by Scott and talent in Steve, because the thing about what this moment represents, this bit, is even though it's just like it's a funny bit, right, amongst friends, but that represents, I think, the spirit of what the dawn of internet fandom was for me, and that just represents, like, there's so much pure joy in that era of Star Wars. You know what? Even though they didn't announce, they were like, haha, it was funny. They got out with the tubas, right, and the German clothes with the band, and they're like, we're going to Germany, and everybody was like, yeah, and that was it.
But they also had the footage of the 3D movies that looked awesome. Yeah,
in 3D,
popping in your face, and Scott knows that one. That's Scott's favorite Muppet movie. That was from.
Or not.
I like some of the facial expressions that Scott's making in this show tonight. So Riley, ICCC. Scott and I were talking about it.
Riley was hard selling me this weekend.
I've never even been.
Thoughts? Yeah, I mean, Rule the Galaxy has now gone 2 years in a row. We find it enjoyable. We've gotten a chance to meet great people, and it's fairly easily accessible because it's in Nashville. I kind of feel like that's a halfway point between Georgia and Indiana. I'm feeling a good Georgia Indiana meetup for all of us here in 2024. If you want to start planning that, just throwing it out there.
Listen. Here's the thing about it, because I've never even been, but I've seen. I was even at San Diego. I heard people talking about how great ICC is.
Wow.
Like that was a legit, like not even somebody I knew, just like a random stranger at the Duo Nuvo booth. Just they were talking about the new Stormtrooper helmets. He's like, "Have you heard about this ICCC con?" And I was like, "I have heard about that because I'd heard it on Rebel Force Radio." But I would be sold. So the short answer, yes, I would be 100% sold, but only because Not because I have a craven sort of almost personally depressed feeling of like trying to recapture the nostalgia we just described in Steve's bit, and doing so in a smaller, maybe more fan focused environment, because those are all things that sound good. But more importantly, because it's in freaking Nashville, and I love Nashville. It's one of the best towns in the world. And so like that, I will go hang at if any of my friends ever, Joe, if you say next weekend, let's go to Nashville, I'm going to check the flight prices and be like, let's see. Well, and then I'm probably going to talk to Savannah about it, and she's going to say you're crazy. But I will actually probably go ask her, can I go hang out with my Star Wars friends in Nashville? And there's a 50-50 shot I get permission from my wife, because this is the new phase of life we're all in.
Yeah.
But no, I say all that. I think it'd be great. And it's one of those things. I think they have, maybe sidebar here. They have, I think, an opportunity because of the climate of fandom and because of sort of how corporatized a lot of these bigger events are. You can kind of counter program against that. And I know they really focus on the like the OG collector audience. So I think that they kind of have a unique approach. But you've been there. I haven't. I don't know. Maybe I've done an appropriate job hard selling it for you. But
I've enjoyed it both times. I mean, anytime you get a chance to meet the people that we've met, I got to hang out with Jimmy and Jason in 2022. I got to meet Ian McDermott. I got to meet Vanessa Marshall this year. I got to meet, Femi Taylor, Ula from Return of the Jedi. I mean, when you get a chance to sit down and have conversations with those people, and because you're in the podcast room and because you're part of that, it was really great. And yeah, I've not had the pleasure of being at a celebration as part of the podcast stuff, but I have to have a feeling that it's
overrated.
Similar. Okay.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I started doing podcasting. Thanks for asking, Joe. I started doing podcasting, I think after my first celebration appearance in 2010 at Celebration 5, and I went to 6. I didn't know those guys. I met other podcasters, because there are other podcasters.
What?
And I know it's crazy, but what the hell was I saying that for?
Just to brag, humble.
You had Star Wars Celebration podcast, yeah.
Just pulled a Mitch McConnell there for a second there. It just happened.
Scott was like, I'm just letting you know I was there.
Yeah, I was there. My God, you guys are talking about this stuff. I didn't know you guys though. I didn't know you guys at all. So I was.
Who I was.
I knew who you were after that.
Okay.
Because after that's when we started doing Dinner for Geeks, and that's when Ryan called and said, "Hey, I got this idea for a podcast," which I know he denies this, but he would do a lot. And a lot of his ideas were really good, but it was just a lot of them were like, there's no way I got time to do that.
Right.
But that one was like, oh, this could happen. And once it got rolling, that's when I was like, I would like to have Steve Glosson on.
And that's when I destroyed it.
That's when, I was talking to Riley this weekend, and we were discussing the fact that there was a certain restaurant where apparently it became my favorite place to record episodes of that show. I didn't even realize it. I recorded you there, recorded Riley there.
Oh, yeah.
And I started on that whole jag for some reason, and I don't remember what that reason is.
Well, I'm going to cut you off because we'll find it here in a few moments. But Riley's on the short leash with time.
Yeah, he is. But hang on a second, Riley, say something so I can get you on the big screen here, because I want to do this.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Because
I don't know how I feel about this.
I'm a big shelf porn addict, and so I see the making of Star Wars up top. Stop laughing, Joe. I gotta see this. I gotta see your shelf here. Hang on. Get the shelf here.
Be quiet?
Say something.
You want us to be quiet?
Yes, please be quiet.
Steve. Okay, all right. Yeah,
I don't want to see you. Okay, there's your shelf. No, wait, move. You got to move your head. I see the making of Star Wars here.
Up is my
I see the making of episode 3 there.
Yep.
I see the Star Wars storyboards book. I see episode 1 VHS. Is that episode 1 VHS down there? The special edition?
Yes,
on the
sure
bottom
is.
shelf. Episode 1 VHS.
I'll,
The annotated screenplays. Is that annotated screenplays over there?
Steve, this is usually
the box set of the CDs
down this way, and it's Scott this time.
Okay, is that annotated screenplays behind you as well?
Sure is. You better
over
believe
your left
it.
shoulder? Okay.
Riley,
I'm recognizing all this stuff.
Riley giving the ladies a show with those legs, man.
How the Force can fix the world, I believe I saw by your collab.
Well, you gotta have the product placement.
Product
right?
placement, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
this might be my new favorite. though.
yeah.
Love
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah.
This is what I grew up listening to. This is the I mean, I know you guys know, but for the good listeners, it's I think 97, 98. It was around the time of the special editions.
92 or 3.
Oh,
yeah, I
wow.
would've
Much
said.
earlier than that. Yeah.
Oh
I think-
wow,
Yeah.
I did. Yeah, but it's the 4-disc original trilogy soundtrack. Probably my favorite of which is the disc 4, like the bonus tracks. And that's where they have like the B side or the B take of a few different John Williams pieces that were recorded. I don't know that I've ever heard of anywhere else, but I grew up listening. My older sister Cindy had this, and I stole it from her more times than I care to admit. Listening to it, I heard these soundtracks hundreds of times before I ever watched a Star Wars movie.
That's
so
a great set. Yeah.
that's that. This is my most recent prized possession.
I loved that. I remember when I got it for Christmas. It was just the best. It's funny how Christmas continues to be. You know, Joe, you and I were talking about that last time. Like
Christmas
so
in
many
July.
Star Wars memories tied in with Christmas. I got the Letterbox VHS box set for Christmas, and that was with the abridged version of the Creative Impulse in there and all of that. It was anyway. Yeah, it's hitting 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
You gotta get rolling.
Yeah.
don't you?
So real quick,
it's my
to
time,
let
but I
you
will
go.
say, you know, I will say I have these 2 tiny shelves. So Scott has a little bit of a slight leap on me in terms of shelf space, but you know it works for me. It's like the handful of prized possessions that I'm willing to ship around the world while I'm active duty. So I'm a fan of each of those books. That's kind of the extent of my library, but I have a few things I wrote. I have like all the art books. That's kind of one thing that I decided to keep. And that's been kind of my recent favorite. But yeah, no one has asked me about these shelves, and I probably spent 5 hours rearranging.
See, I
There
can
you
tell
go.
there was a lot of thought put into the Star Warsiness of it, and that's why I decided to say something. And I thought that I could identify many of those items. Ergo, I did.
Well played, sir. Well
Here we
played.
go.
Riles,
Okay.
I just want you to know that seeing you and being able to talk with you in the words of Yoda has brought warm feelings to my heart.
No,
Aw.
well, same to you, gentlemen, and I appreciate Joe. I actually am bummed that I can't stay for the remaining 2 hours and 47 minutes of this podcast. So, but you know, I said this to you like 2 years ago, and it holds today. Anytime, shoot me an invite, I will gladly
Will
hop
do.
on.
Hey,
especially if any of these gentlemen are on, because again, some OG Star Wars goodness. So I can't wait to I'm gonna go back and listen to the rest of this episode. But yeah, I appreciate you having me on, man.
All right,
Hey,
guys,
no
we can't
worries.
talk
And the
smack
Star
about 'em.
Star Wars community is much better when you're in it. So thank you, Riley, and thanks for being back in. I'm loving the show. So we will talk to you more, and we'll get some more shows put together, and we'll plan that trip to Nashville.
Deal. Good luck convincing these guys. Strangely quiet, I noticed while I was.
You guys, you're making it harder and harder to say no on this thing.
Yeah,
I told you this weekend I hate the idea.
Mhm. but yet.
But yeah.
If
See you
Scott
guys.
goes-
Got
if
it.
Scott goes,
See.
I'll go. See you, Riley.
What should happen is you guys should all come down for Jekyll Comic Con. And then that way I can just drive like 20 minutes to it and we're good.
Oh, so now it's all about Scott now. That's what it
Well,
is.
yeah.
Featuring Ming Chen.
Ming, I did a couple of panels with Ming.
Yeah.
Mike and Ming. Sure did.
What we
so-
should do is a Gold Con in Rome, Georgia.
I would do Rome. Rome's what, 4 or 5 hours away? 5 hours?
Yeah, it's
Where's-
about an hour drive.
Where is that
We'll do
compared
that.
to Atlanta?
About an hour and a half east or west. I mean,
Okay.
yep. You
Yeah.
just drive out of Atlanta from the airport, and that's the
I'd
tough
do
part.
Gold Con in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because you mentioned, Steve, earlier, you want Star Wars to do well and you want Star Wars to be good.
Yeah.
And it's not that you don't want it to be bad.
Right.
Which is funny because, and as a side, and hopefully I'll remember my original point when I come back, but as a side, you were talking about how you can go out and find good things to say about stuff. And what I've noticed about you is you got put into kind of a box for a while there, so that if you ever did say anything negative, people just went at you.
Yeah.
And you could even go like to the reviews on Apple Podcasts and it's like, Steve, it used to be a great podcast, but now suddenly, because you didn't like something somebody else liked, And well, Steve used to be, but he's revealed himself to be.
Well, it's the same thing that happened to you. It's the same thing that happened to any of us, though, also that didn't care for The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and unfortunately, that was so divisive amongst fandom.
Yes.
You know, I disagreed with people that hated the prequels, but I never was like, you know, I never despised them for disliking them. And people who dislike the prequels never despised other people for disliking the prequels. It was a weird.
They despised the prequels.
Yeah, it was a weird phenomenon that took place there for a few years, and it's still kind of, we're still in the. I think it's kind of settled, but we're still in the aftermath of it. They're still trying to make things like that happen. It seems like.
Well, and that's that you say they're still trying to make things happen, and it's interesting. Who is the they? Because it seemed like at one point Lucasfilm was leaning into that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was really wrong. But it started me that it's funny you go there because that's started me thinking about something the other day. Because a lot of the Disney Star Wars things have tended to push some of us away because of the fact, I think, less the content of the program, but more the way in which fandom has responded to them. And I started totaling it up the other day. And I said, well, you know, they have done a good job in a very real sense of pushing me away in a lot of different respects. And then, you know, this last weekend, I was down in Orlando, and I started thinking about the fact that how much did I spend on Star Wars stuff when I was down there in Orlando? And I didn't
at least $80.
Yeah, at least 80. What, for the socks?
Yeah, I'm sorry, at least $60.
No, I spent
75.
I spent $75 on socks. Okay. I mean, think about this for a second. I spent $75 on Star Wars socks this weekend. So
but wait a minute, and an exact replica of a 1983
no,
lunchbox.
it was not.
1981 lunchbox.
1981 lunchbox.
Well,
I did. I had to share that because I sent you guys the text before I did that little video. I was like, guys, I just went full Scott Ryfun on this girl.
Listen, and full Scott Ryfun is, I just finished Ready Player One, and I got to tell you, there's a couple of mistakes in there. Like, he read the book to find out what things these people in the future got wrong about their 80s references.
I still think that Scott Ryfun's ready to pounce on somebody about Howard the Duck with his newspaper article from USA Today.
I've pounced. Don't think I haven't pounced.
That's right. I'm sorry I didn't wear a fedora. I don't have a cool fedora with a story behind it. But yeah, the Howard the Duck thing, like I love that Scott's like, I kept this article, laminated it. Just because
I wanted to have it ready.
It's almost like he watched and said, this movie's not good, but people are saying it's good.
No,
One day they're going to say they were bad.
No, it's the opposite. I said this movie's it's okay. And it's kind of like you and X-Men 3.
Yeah, I just have nostalgia for Howard the Duck.
I was there opening day. I saw the first show in town. In August of 86.
Duck movie.
And I remember coming out of it going, because I was with people and I was with people who were looking at me because I had high hopes, and they were like, did you like that? And I'm like, yeah, what's wrong with it? And they're like, no. And I said, okay, this is a thing. And I'd gotten USA Today, and USA Today gave it 2.5 stars.
Mm-hmm.
And 2.5 is pretty good, but it's not great.
That means it ain't half bad.
Yeah. It's just above half bad, actually, when you get right down to it, because they're a 4-star scale.
Oh,
so
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So 2.5 ain't half bad.
Yeah, 2.5's all right. Yeah. So I said, you know, here's the thing. And I started hearing people say, oh, Howard the Duck's the worst movie ever made. Could be one of the worst movies ever made. And I went, no, it's not. It's not. And I knew for some reason in the future, people would because we're very reductivist. You know, we just boil it down to this one simple thought. And that's
emphasis on duck.
No, emphasis on duck. Very nice. Nice. They boil it down. I had to throw that in there too. But you know, so I saved that because I said one day somebody's gonna say it's the worst movie of all time, and I go, ha, Tunk, we didn't think that back then. So
we didn't, as though we are the you are the
well, yeah. I mean, you know, but people
reviewers.
like like history changes over time because people start revising it, and I was not going to let them revise Howard the Duck out of history.
No,
So-
don't you dare do that, Scott.
Mm-mm.
That's the hill worth dying on right there.
I think
so.
Howard the Duck Hill.
my you know my problem. My problem is like every hill is worth dying on.
Right. Yeah, you're ready to fight. Yeah, listen, if you want to fight, just make sure Scott Ryfun's on your side. And all you have to do is sit back and be like, yeah, man, that's right. Go for it.
I'll die on some hills, and unfortunately, I do die on some of them. But you know, my point on that, I started tallying this up, and I started going, all right, let's not go from the acquisition in 2012. Let's go from Force Awakens forward. You know, where Disney because Disney bought Star Wars in 2012, but it didn't really take shape as what it was because they still had to get out the last of the pipeline of the old stuff. They had to tell Dark Horse to take a walk.
Mm-hmm.
They had to, restart canon. They had a number of things to go before they really got to what Disney Star Wars is. So let's say Force Awakens forward. And I started thinking, okay, so they've done a thing where they've kind of pushed me away in a lot of ways. But has that, in fact, hurt how much I've spent on Star Wars? Because I stopped buying the books because of Chuck Wendig. And I was, slavishly devoted to the book. So I started totaling it up. How much have I spent? This is my estimate. How much have I spent on Star Wars since The Force Awakens?
$15,000.
50,000, no less. I mean, first the car was 30,000.
Oh, that's right.
The road.
The car was 30,000.
Oh, yeah.
No, I forgot about the car. Yeah.
But and I would never have done that before Force Awakens. But I bought the car, was 30,000. I bought oh golly, what all did I buy now? I had a huge list of these things. I bought a $250 lightsaber.
Wow.
I would never have bought a $250. I went to Savvy's workshop.
This?
I spend 150. I buy 10 of those.
Scott goes down to Disney and he's like, here, have your holiday droid. And it's like,
yeah,
like clockwork. It's all
I try to get that's my kind of like, I don't send Christmas cards out. I send Christmas droids out.
And we prefer that.
And yeah, so I send those out. Jimmy Mack ate one on an episode of Rebel Force Radio, but that's okay. It provided some mileage on the show. But I started doing the math. I mean, I bought a $450 Boba Fett jacket. What the hell is that?
Jacket.
Why would I do that? Would never have done that before.
Why would you do that?
I don't
have that money in the envelope.
We did actually. Yes.
Nice.
We did have it in the envelope. That Vader. Do you see that Vader?
Mm-hmm.
It is so gorgeous. It's beautiful. I got that this weekend at Disney.
$250.
No, it was only like 110 with my discount.
Gotcha.
It wasn't bad.
Yeah, that's a good.
But the Rogue, and I started totaling up. I bought 3 Sphero robots.
3? Which ones?
Well, I got BB. Actually, you know what? I won BB-8 in a Rancho Obi-Wan drawing.
Okay.
So I not only got it, but I got a nice handwritten card from Ann Newman when that came out.
That's nice.
You are quite the winner, Scott. You win.
I won that
quite
in
a few
drawing.
things.
And then I bought an R2, and then the evil black R2, whoever he is.
Okay.
And so I got. In fact, they're all over there. Actually, no. You know what? I bought another one because I found a closeout evil black R2, and I bought another one of him. I got an unopened one in there.
Wow.
I bought 5 of those stupid battle drones. I have, the battle drones they did.
No.
Remember they had them at Celebration. That I think the 2017 Celebration. I think they had them.
Oh, I wasn't there.
That Riley knows about it because Riley and I played with them, and Riley's pretty good.
Call
Riley
him
had
back
some.
in.
Yeah, call Riley. Get him on the horn. But no, you don't remember the little battle drones they had? They had an X-wing, they had a Vader TIE, TIE X1.
Did they had the
speeder
fans
bike.
in them?
Yeah.
Okay, I remember.
But these weren't the cheesy Air Fox ones or whatever. These were ones that had little sensors in them. They're really nice, snazzy.
And you could shoot back and forth like laser tag kind of with drones.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I have 5 of those. I got 3 unopened ones sitting in my garage. I mean, I'm starting to start tallying this stuff up. And it's $50,000.
Yeah. In 8 years' time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So have they really pushed me away in all the best ways for them? I mean,
But they found certain things that still tickle your fancy.
you know how much I probably spent on action figures when I was a kid during the first run? Like all of them, like $300.
Yeah, but if you took that today, the cost of an action figure today, you're looking at about $3,000.
Well, maybe, but I paid $21 for a 3 3/4 Boba Fett last week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the one the not Killian Plunkett, what's his name? The Cam Kennedy looking one.
Oh, the comic book version one.
Yeah.
It's
a repaint.
I know.
I bought a repaint for $21.
Here's where I'm at on this thing. What's interesting to me is if you go and you look at and I guess I hang out in the toy world with all this stuff is kind of where my bread and butter is now when it comes to Star Wars knowledge. I haven't watched every second of every show. I've not watched 1 second of the Bad Batch. I haven't read a Star Wars book since the Chuck Wendig stuff either that I know of, and I listened to those, and that was struggling. But
I spent $600 on Rain Spooner shirts. I spent $420 on Roosevelt's.
But see what they're doing though is with the merchandise, at least they're appealing to you, Scott.
Yeah.
Because they are leaning heavy into classic trilogy and the more successful franchises or the more successful things that have come about since the Force Awakens.
Yes.
You're not going to find right now any vintage collection or Black Series release of a sequel character.
Not at all.
And that's because they're all at clearance. If you find any,
they're all at Ollie's.
They really are, and so they really misjudged kind of, I think, who was buying a lot of the stuff and what they wanted out of it.
I went on a buying spree on Last Jedi. You know why I went on a buying spree on Last Jedi?
Because it was the Last Jedi.
Because the merch bombed so badly that it was like 80 and 90% off everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I cleaned up buying and stupid stuff. I don't want a father water bottle.
No, not at all.
But it was $25 marked down to $2.
But like right now at Ollie's for $9.99, they've actually got some decent Black Series figures because Lucasfilm has essentially killed the market and what they're doing. And so their licensors are hurting, at least on the toy side of things. The collectors aren't collecting them that much anymore, unfortunately. I don't hear anyone extolling the virtues of the books necessarily or the comics. It's almost like the people that even the people that are enjoying the stuff, it's almost like they all say the same things as though they know they're supposed to enjoy it because it's Star Wars.
Yes.
The passion that seems to be there anymore is not the passion for the material. It's the passion to have your opinion validated, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. See that shelf there? That one right there?
Yeah.
$1,500 worth of Omnibuy. $1,500.
You know what I've got? I've got a couple of the Hulk Omnibuy, and those are really cool. I love those things.
You got at least one essential.
Does anyone else feel that Scott has discretionary funds?
It seems like it.
I don't feel like I do. I don't when I'm done with all this crap.
Well, and here's the other thing, guys. I'll tell you, I've really struggled lately with what am I doing? I've got a room full of toys sitting here. What is this all about? The only thing that separates me from a stamp collector or a coin collector is my stuff just takes up more space. There are people who have spent just as much money and just as much time on things that I didn't understand, but they absolutely loved. Yep. And they just don't take up this much space, and they're not as colorful in plastic. And
the Scott and I talked about it the other day, and I'm gonna cross my fingers and hope it's true. And I will say this, maybe it is, because I think about the same thing that you guys are thinking about. I have all this behind me. I have a closet full of tubs stacked with toys, right? And I think, I'm 52 years old. What path is this following? Where is this leading to?
Yeah.
And then my grandson, today when I came home from work, I followed him into my office. He went into the shelves. I've already got some of his toys ready. He's 11 months old. He grabbed the little chubby, tiny Star Wars guys, Chewbacca, Han Solo, the Tauntaun. He grabbed them in his little chubby hands, and he knew where they were, grabbed them, and went walking out of the room with him. He knew right away where they were, and I thought, okay, so maybe all of this behind me is going to serve a purpose, and if he likes it, and I've got another grandson coming and all that. So, I'm hoping that I could sit here in my office, which will be their playroom, and say, let's take down the things you want off the wall or out of the shelves, and let's play with them like we used to.
That's what they're
line them
for.
up and do all that. And speaking of the books, you guys are exactly right. The High Republic has not caught me at all. I read the first 3 or 4 books, and I said, okay, I need like an encyclopedia to keep up with all these things that are going on. And then my son, who's turning 30 this month, said, I really want to start, because he comes in and sees my Star Wars book collection, and he's like, I kind of want to start that. I haven't read all these books. And so for his birthday, and he won't listen to the show, and I'll tell you why in a minute, I went and got him the Kenobi by John Jackson Miller, and then the Timothy Zahn, Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, Last Command, and I'm going to get him the Bane trilogy by Drew Karpyshyn, because even though those are all old EU whatever, those are the ones where I've read the Thrawn trilogy I don't know how many times, and I told him, once you read those, it gets you feeling that Star Wars feel again, right? It's not some message being sent down your throat or anything like that. It really feels like a Star Wars book or novel. So, and the reason, real quick, the reason I know he doesn't listen is because every week he goes, hey, Dad, did you hear what Jimmy and Jason said on Rebel Force Radio? And I'll say, yeah, I did. And I go, hey, did you hear what Brent and Alfie said on my show? Nah, I didn't listen.
Well,
okay.
$300 worth of Barnes and Noble exclusives right there. Sorry.
I remember with the Heir to the Empire when it came out in paperback, and it had the reviews on some reviews on the back or whatever. One of the ones was I could hear John Williams' score in my head as I read this book. And I just remember as I opened up to read it, and like Zahn opens on a Star Destroyer, like the whole book opens on a Star Destroyer, and I'm like, yeah, this is great. Now I wasn't like Scott Ryfun. I absolutely bought into Grand Admiral Thrawn being the smartest guy in the universe, but we won't go down that road, Hey, and that brings me to this question.
Wait. Okay, what's your question?
Well, I was just saying that because you mentioned, Joe, those essential readings of Legends, that just to put you that way. Did you ever finish up watching Rebels? Star Wars
Scott
Rebels?
or me?
I haven't finished watching Clone Wars.
Oh wow.
I'm on season 5 of I'm late in season 5 of Clone Wars. Things are hot. And I'm enjoying the show, but it's just
I was going to bring this up, and Scott has to go into this. I just did a rewatch of Clone Wars and a rewatch of Rebels. Both.
Hang on. Before you go, I want to validate Steve.
No.
I want to validate Steve because Steve was talking about the merchandising thing. Oh, by the way, my whole living room, ruggables, Star Wars ruggables. From the front door mat to the foyer to the living room.
You know what, Steve? If anybody robs his house, they know where everything is, how much it costs.
Anyway.
They stole my Star Wars. They stole my Star Wars welcome mats.
They would, but no. But you were talking about how they do the vintage, like they're really marketing the vintage. They're really marketing the older fan. Let me tell you what happened to me. So I go to Disney, the other week, as I mentioned, and I think I bought like 5 or 6 new shirts, all Star Wars shirts, and I'm scrolling through Twitter, and I think it's like Holocron.
Chronicles. Yeah,
this is why you don't get invited. This is why you don't get invited back to people's podcasts.
I saw those shirts though. Holocron.
Thank you. Chronicles podcast. And they posted a thing of the Jabba the Hutt, Jabba the Hutt Play-Doh set.
Oh.
And they're like, oh, yeah. And they're like, oh, we can smell this just by looking at the picture. We can smell this. And I looked at the art on the box and I went, that's the shirt I'm wearing right now.
Yeah.
It's the same art.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same Jabba. It's the same Salacious. So, yes, you're absolutely right. And like they're going straight to the well. The well. But I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe. I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're fine.
I meant to cut you off. That's not actually true.
I do want to do one thing and hold up the show for this one thing, only because I asked people for questions for the show. And before I forget, and before we get going, the Dave M. Jones did send in a question, and I'm sure you guys saw it on Twitter. It was, what is everyone's favorite Lando moment? Film, animation, novels, comics, etc. And I will throw that out to you guys. And because I didn't want it to get lost in the shuffle, because I know how this works, and I always forget to ask the questions people send in. And Dave's great, so.
Yes, he is.
Scott, I imagine this would be a question for you, especially to go outside of the movies with Lando.
You know, it's funny because in trying to do this, I came up with 4 Lando Calrissian moments that I think are exciting to me. One is the flip when he starts working his wristwatch, and he starts working the wristwatch to kind of secretly,
yeah.
It's like, okay, Lando's serious. Lando's changing now. Lando's getting it. He's getting the picture, and I love that moment. I also love the moment in The Last Jedi where he shows up at the end and brings everybody with him.
Right.
Because that's just a Lando move.
On your left. Yeah.
I love it. On your left.
Yeah.
But I also do love his return to Cloud City in the original Marvel series, where he has to avoid a Lobot who's been sabotaged by the Empire, been whacked by the Empire. And I think that's great. But I think probably my greatest Lando moment hasn't happened yet. And it is the moment when I finally win a reasonably priced eBay auction of a hardcover copy of Lando Calrissian and the Mind Harp of Sharu in hardcover. And that hasn't happened yet. So
I know
if you guys can make that happen.
Keep an eye out for, yeah.
Yeah, the two they did the first 2 of that trilogy they did in hardcovers for the book clubs, and they're insanely priced. There was one Friday night, actually, or Saturday night when I was having dinner with Riley. There was one out there that it had been at about $25. And I was like, all right, I might take it up to 50. Went for 102, which was kind of low for those things. So, but it's not where I want to spend it because I'm too busy spending $50,000 other dollars, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, look, that was an interesting question. I know why Dave is asking that, because Dave keeps his finger on the pulse of everything that's going on.
Go ahead.
Oh,
bring
the
it.
cryptic Billy tweet,
which now has been released.
Oh, has it?
Yeah.
See, I'm not, obviously my finger's not on the pulse.
What did he make?
Did you guess that? See?
No.
I assumed it was the TV series.
That's what I assumed as well, but you know what happens when we assume. Billy D.
You're making
novel. What Have We Here? My memoirs.
Well, that's not a novel.
Well, I mean, it's a book. Sorry. Yeah. What Have We Here? Which I'm hoping he does in an audio version, because one of my favorite audiobooks is I Am C-3PO with Anthony Daniels. That audiobook is fantastic.
I'm no Billy Mack, but allow me.
Yeah.
Coming in February 2024, I'll be sharing my life story from Harlem to Star Wars and beyond, on all that has sustained and carried me through a lifetime of dreams and adventure. Ghosts and goblins. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I went to Harvey.
What?
A second. I went to Harvey there. Yeah, he's got a pre-order. You can pre-order now. Wow, cool.
Yep.
No, I knew it was.
What have we here?
I knew it wasn't going to be the TV series.
What have we here?
I think my favorite Lando
Billy
moment.
D. Williams. Coming in February 2024.
Are we doing?
Billy D. will be sharing his life story from Harlem to Star Wars and beyond.
Did we?
On all that has sustained and carried him through a lifetime of dreams and adventure.
Correct.
I thought it'd just be neater if he, instead of doing the audiobook, went and got Morgan Freeman to do the audiobook for him. I thought that might be
coming soon in 2024. Hello, Kermit the Frog here. Really excited to tell you about Billy D. Yeah. I love the yeehaw moment in Return. I love Lando bursting out of the Death Star and everything that goes on in that battle with him.
And then him telling Chewie about it later.
That's right. He's like,
because you know what he's talking about when he does that.
He's like, I know you're going to be upset about the sensor dish, but we before it can blow us. They told me they were going to kill me in the original script, but we jetted out.
The man was so great, he beat the script.
Oh,
Right. Yeah. But I know why Dave was asking that, because he has his finger on the pulse, and it's all about, there has been some Landro controversy come about, with the director being fired, and he said he found out about it on social media and everything, and all the stuff that's going on with the Lando series that I know everybody is just itching to see. I'm sorry. I let my start get out sometimes, and it gets me in trouble.
I used to like that Steve Glosson when he was positive about everything.
Rule of the Galaxy's canceled because Glosson was on
Why
there.
can't he just enjoy Star Wars?
He's dissing the greatest Lando of all time.
Greatest Lando. Oh, Donald Glover, the childish Gambino. Childish Calrissiano.
I'm gonna give you my favorite Lando, and heck, if I was all geared up like Steve is, I would play it for you. But on my 50th, okay, yeah, I forgot it all blew up, didn't it? On my 50th birthday, which was 2 years ago now, I'm getting very old. I walked into my living room. We were having a big pool party. You guys were both invited. Obviously, you didn't come. But
we're getting that invite.
Yeah, it was.
Was that
anyway?
An invite?
Probably.
Check my spam folder.
But I walk into my living room, and my son says, "Check out the TV." I turn on my TV. All my friends had gone in and got a cameo by Billy D. Williams playing Lando, telling me happy 50th birthday. It was freaking awesome. So that I've got it saved on my phone.
Please tell me he started out with "Hello, Joe."
It was something like that. Like I said, if I was as professional as you guys, I would have it all ready and go and play it up for you. But you know what? I'll add it in. How about that?
Yes.
We'll add it into the show so you guys can hear it, because it's
Fix it
fantastic.
in post.
I will. I'll put it in there.
How you doing, you old pirate? So good to see you. A long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, a Jedi was born to bring balance to the Force. We celebrate that day today and wish you, Joe, the happiest 50th birthday in all of the galaxy. Time flies even faster than the Falcon during the Kessel Run, but remember, you can always round down. If you are ever feeling old, though, you're still looking much better than Jabba. And I might even be able to arrange some carbonite freezing as a special birthday present to you. Joe, thanks for being a huge fan. I am truly honored. Happy birthday, and may the Force be with you.
That was great. The other thing there's two other things related to Billy and Lando that I love. One, on Modern Family, where he meets Jay and Gloria, and he says, "I'm Billy D. Williams," and she goes, "I'm Gloria D. Wife." That was funny. And then the other thing is, for those, we were talking about the Zahn trilogy, the Mark Thompson audio version of that. Mark Thompson does a phenomenal Lando. His Lando sounds really good. Now it might not be Billy Mack, but it's really good, and he plays him very well in that trilogy right there. So just throwing that out there to go along with
Mark Thompson's a freak of nature.
He's great.
He's just
he's
the best there's ever been at Star Wars books. Period.
Mark Thompson television production. Oh, I'm sorry, that's Mark Goodson television.
Yeah.
This is the CBS television network.
Yeah. So I appreciate you guys doing that, because Dave is great. And when I saw his question come across, I wanted to make sure we did. I was going to try to grab Riley before he left, but
let me just say this. Dave is the best. Dave is You're not going to meet anyone kinder or a more true friend than Dave Jones.
I thought we were the best. I thought you opened the show by saying Riley and I were the best.
I said y'all were the best for different reasons. Dave's a friend.
Oh,
Dave's a friend.
Like Dave.
Yeah. Dave doesn't leave me and go to Korea. And
I didn't leave you.
Well,
I was right here, Steve.
Sometimes it feels like it, Scott.
Wow.
I just get embarrassed sometimes. You go into these sock stores, you're like, "Hey, that's not a replica 1981 Return of the Bucks."
Hey, so my kids did buy me for Father's Day a few years back, and they had the light side and the dark side box of Stance socks, Star Wars Stance socks. They bought me the light side version for Father's Day, I believe. And I still, Stance, very good sock, doesn't fall apart, very good, holds up, everything like that.
Apparently.
They're very good socks. I
They
don't know
like
if they're
'em.
worth that money, but
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
they're better for $20 a pair, right, Scott?
Yeah. I went in that. So nobody, I guess you guys heard the story, but I sent it to a limited number of people that I thought would appreciate it. But yeah, so I was at Disney and I went in the Stance store because I saw Return of the Jedi stuff outside and I went, oh, this is going to be a thing. And under the counter, they had some stuff. Well, look at the socks. And the girl behind the counter says, oh yeah, this is my favorite collab we've ever done. And I had to pull out Google and start looking up the translate Zennial to old guy. And collab. Okay. And that's the thing where it says Star Wars X something. And that's collab.
Okay.
And she goes, and it was like, you get these socks, and it comes in this lunchbox, which is an exact replica of the original one from 1981. She was so proud of herself. But I just couldn't let, I felt it. It was like that. It's like when Banner has been pushed too far. And it just starts welling up within you. It's like when somebody mentions the malt liquor and the bull, you start feeling that rumble because the bull's about to come running through the wall. You know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah. The bull malt liquor.
The Schlitz malt liquor bull.
Schlitz malt liquor.
That's right. Gets them every time.
No, that's 45.
No, that's right. Darn. Malt liquor is a malt liquor, isn't it? But
oh, God.
so it just came out, and I had to go full Scott. And I was like, well, first off, it's 1983, not 1981. But secondly, that is not the lunchbox that came out in 1983.
She had no idea what bear she was poking.
First off,
idea.
Scott, was there any art on that box from 83?
No, yes, there was. First off, that image is from 1985 re-release. Flipped it around. That image is from 1997 special editions. On the sides,
that was the most egregious error to me.
Yeah, the special edition one, because I mean it's a great poster, but it ain't 1983.
I know
And on the sides, on both sides, they've got the Style A, the original 1983 Style A.
Yeah, the hands holding up.
Yeah, I love that.
Now, I had in 1983 the Return of the Jedi lunchbox, and on one side you had Luke, shooting at Jabba. I forget what was the other side. What's the reverse, Scott?
Well,
that
to borrow a line from Indiana Jones, there's a picture of it right here.
Yeah, I feel like it's indoor, maybe.
Hang on.
I thought it was either speeder bikes and Ewoks on Endor or the Imperial Throne Room. I can't remember which one it was.
Oh no, it may be the Death Star scene. Anyhow, I had that lunchbox and I took it to lunch to school every day. And he's got to get out of his little step. Oh, please,
we're getting ladders.
Please be a moment that'll show up on Fail Army. Please
look at those legs. Scott's talking about Riley's legs.
Talk about giving the show for the ladies.
We got the cadaver color going on.
Oh man! Now see, he couldn't just pull one. That's the problem with Scott. Right there it is. See, yeah.
Okay.
Death Star in the thing.
Vader, the Death Star, Star Destroyer.
I love that lunchbox. I don't know.
It's got so many great pictures on it.
There we go.
May have been my very first lunchbox that I ever had.
Lando makes that.
It got the original Max Rebo band. And there he is. Hey, have you guys seen what Hasbro Pulse has done, bringing out Jabba for the vintage series? Collection Jabba?
No.
Only $90 for Jabba, the Deus, a Salacious Crumb, and an 8D8.
Oh, man.
But now listen, they make a big deal of like, he's got his little hookah pipe here. Like, yeah, so did the original, you fools.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this.
I like those thermoses.
Yeah. But yeah, so this is the original 1983.
I love it. Luke with that blaster on the front side.
And I don't know who painted this stuff, because it's all painted stuff. And I liked the fact that it was painted. Of the two metal Empire lunchboxes that they made, they made one with photos all over it and one with paintings. Right. I loved the painting one.
Yeah.
Love the painted one. And I love this.
I'm surprised you don't know who painted those, Scott, because usually you've got your finger on that.
You're right. You're right. I should know that. I'm kind of embarrassed that I don't.
But there's also some very common art from around those days. It's very comic book pop art
Yeah, like
drawings
the
of
key art stuff.
yeah, of the individual characters, and I was wondering if you knew. I asked you one time if you knew who did that. And
No, and that that key art stuff. I don't know who did that, and I know it's somebody knows, and I feel stupid for
good.
not knowing that.
It's some of my favorites. Like when I see one of those images, that takes me straight back to '83.
Yeah, the Vader with his head turned and his arms crossed.
Yes,
Uh,
for sure.
the stormtroopers running.
Your standard Wicket.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so good stuff.
Love that stuff.
Love it.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of my thing. You know, when you talk about pushing fans away and that sort of thing, I've really come to the place where, you know, they were showing this Jabba thing off the other day at Comic-Con or whatever. I'm like, that really is cool. I'd like to have that on my shelf. I don't have a lot of room on my shelf. Guess what I do have though? I've got a vintage Jabba, you know, on his dais with a Salacious Crumb and his hookah and everything. I've got an 8D8 as well. And so I've really gotten to where it's like, if you've got vintage Star Wars, even if I own it, I love looking at it. I love being a part of it. And if I had the money, I would fill in the holes in my collection, you know, but I've also come to grips like, I can't afford the last 17. I can't afford space. I can't afford a Barada or, you know, or even an
That's
Imperial.
the same way I am,
you know, and I'm okay with that. But I'm very much like, you know what? I'm good with the memories. Leave the memories alone kind of place. You know, I'm very much in that kind of place where I'm at now. And so, and if something's really good that they bring out, fantastic. I'm excited about it. I'll watch it and enjoy it and talk about it. If not, you know, I'll just Andor it and file it away and let it be what it was, you know, because I'm not mad at Andor, you know, just like with Indiana Jones, you know, Scott did a great job of kind of breaking down. And I called Scott after I saw it and I'm like, I need to know what you thought. And I need to know that I'm validated and vindicated. and we really thought a lot of the same things. I don't know that I got the nice fluffy Scott who'd gone to see it a second time and was so forgiving of it, but
well, let me and I think what I've said about that though is the criticisms I had initially, I still have.
Right.
They're just not felt as sharply after the second view.
Yeah. And I just, you know, and so I'm just like, you know what? I'll leave the memories alone. I've got a lot of great stuff that, you know, and I'll roll with some stuff. Like one of the things now I think I've kind of turned my attention to is some of these essential collections that Marvel puts out of different of, you know, their comic stuff.
The Epic collection stuff?
Yeah, the Epic collection, yeah.
The essentials were black and white.
The essentials, the Epic collections, you know, and they're like, I mean, you're looking at $25-$30 a pop for them, and some of them are out of print, you know, and it'll be fun, but like they all have kind of a uniform look to them, and so you can put them on the shelf. They've got the Star Wars books done with essential collections, I think, and so there you go. See, Scott's showing them off right there. And and so they're items that I wouldn't mind having and reading and having, you know, just kind of have on my person and stuff. And you know, so and so when we go, it's fun. When my wife and I love to go to like antique malls and stuff, and every now and again you'll stumble across someone who has a booth with just some vintage Star Wars figures and little baggies, and they're usually overpriced because people think they have something that they don't, you know.
Yes.
But I love looking through them anyway, you know, and like I'm always tempted to buy, if I see a Jedi Luke, no matter what condition it's in, I'm always tempted to buy that Jedi Luke.
Sure.
I love a good Jedi Luke, you know, and that's thing. So
you should see mine.
You got him in good shape.
Oh, he looks good. Ryan commented how good he looked. The face, the paint, the hand paint, still good. I mean,
those are the kickers. The hand paint and the nose.
Yeah, he's looking good. He's looking good.
But
let me tell you.
Go ahead.
What we have, because I'm going to bring this back around to the positivity of it, is we have this thing that really does bind us. You know, when Yoda's describing the Force, he's really kind of talking about OG Star Wars stuff. We have a new police chief. I didn't put this on the air because, you know, I didn't know where this fell in the ethical realm, but you know, I'm just going to say it. We have a new police chief, and he came to the studio to do the show. And when he came in, he said, "Hey, I've got something for you," and he hands me a bag, a little baggie, and I open up, and it's got seeds, leaves. No, he hands me.
I'm like, where are we going with this guy?
I was so excited. Then you're like, he just gave me illicit drugs.
No. He hands me this bag, and I pull it out, and I take a look at this thing, and it's wrapped in tissue papers. You can't see it, but I looked at it and I said, "This came from Burger King, didn't it?" And he goes, "Yep." Nice. And I open it up, and it's a Return of the Jedi, Burger King glass. And he said, "We were, we're moving into the house here. We're rearranging some things." And he said, "I had an extra one of these. And so I thought, well, I know where this probably belongs.
That's awesome. That's fun.
And yeah, it was great. It was just so, here's this new guy in town. He's the police chief. He's a guy that, I'm going to have to spend some time with. I'm going to have a relationship with. And how did we find a common language? We spoke Star Wars to each other.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the kind of thing that I was talking about earlier when I was talking about Star Wars, when we meet on the playground.
Yeah. It's like at the end of Fanboys, you go through the whole movie thinking his brother's just this jerk, and then they're all in line at the fan. He's like, I didn't know you liked. So he's like, it's the wars, bro. And it's like there's this thing that there was no one who did not like Star Wars in 1983, 84, 85. There was no kid who would say, I don't really like that, and now they might have grown out of it like I didn't, they might have moved on to other things and I didn't. But when you start to talk about it, what I love is when people say, oh, I had, and they begin to recount Star Wars toys they had. And it's
they know
fun.
them.
And to me, it's really cute because it's like, oh, I had the Millennium Falcon. And I want to say everyone had the Millennium Falcon, but,
but everyone didn't. It was big.
Right. But they're like, oh, I had this figure and I had that figure. I'm like, that's really cool. Yeah, me too. I had those too. And I just let them kind of do their thing and make that connection with me, because that side of me that wants to be like, oh, well, let me show you something, that doesn't work for people.
Yeah, you can't
like
go full
that.
Scott Ryfun.
That don't work for people who aren't us. But like what Scott says, hey, I got the Imperial attack base, and I'm like, yeah, does it have this? Does it have this? Does it have, and I get really jazzed up about, and it's like, let me get your collection and put it together for you. Let me put these toys together for you and let's play. Like it's that kind of it's that kind of thing that I love, and I think it's the dragon we all chase now as adults, unfortunately, just to have that feeling of awe and wonder again.
Yeah.
And, and I don't look, what did John Mellencamp say?
Hurt so good.
No.
Oh.
Little pink houses.
No.
Okay.
He says, long after the thrill of living, it's gone. Life goes on long after the thrill of living.
Yeah.
And my wife pointed out to me how sad those lyrics were. And I'm like, but it's such a jam. But I see an awesome looking Jabba come up for $90, new, and this Hasbro thing. And I'm like, yeah, that looks cool and all. But when you turn his head, does his tail wiggle? When and what, I don't know. There's just something that's like, I already have Jabba, and I have a Jabba that brought me so much joy as a kid. I already have an X-Wing, and it's the X-Wing that flew around my living room. And, I already have a snow speeder, and it's a snow speeder that went outside on snow days. I already, I have these things, and yeah, it's cool to see that you're making them again, but why would I buy it? Why would I drop that much money on that when I can come in here for free and just look and remember and enjoy and even show off if I want to, via YouTube or a podcast or some such. So I think that, Scott's right. It binds us, when we start talking about the experiences we had in theaters, when we talk about renting these things on videotape, watching them on HBO, recording them off of television, recording some weird Cinemax thing after Return of the Jedi and having
hey. I know who got caught with that.
Hey, listen, I had an illegal copy of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi for the first time because my uncle brought his VCR over and we ganked it off of they weren't laser discs, they were like cartridges, it seemed.
Oh, yeah. Oh, never mind. Mine's in
what are those called?
The RCA video discs.
RCA video discs, yeah.
Yeah.
You guys
I've got an Empire Strikes Back one in my storage unit.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all of similar age. I know, Steve, you're a little bit younger than Scott and I.
I'm much younger than you guys. What are you talking about?
Okay, much younger. But
much younger.
But this thing that we have about it even stretched to. I mean, it's silly. I recorded the Duel of the Fates video that came out on, what was that, Total Request Live or whatever.
Yeah,
it was.
Total Request Live with Carson Daly.
Yeah, I mean, I watched that. I don't know how many times, just sitting there picking through it, just watching, listening to music. And so it didn't stop in 1983. It didn't stop in 85. I mean,
Nope.
it went all the way to then to where it still was something we went that extra effort. It bonded us together. You know, I mean, again, like
you're talking about leaving the internet going overnight so you could download the trailer.
Oh gosh, yes.
That big,
so much trouble.
Alfie talks about that all the time, where he's like, "Okay, it was dial-up. You know how long dial-up takes to get
Oh, my
this
God.
or that."
I got in so much trouble with the missus on that because it was like 45 minutes to a meg back then. Because I got a better modem later where it was 15 minutes to a meg, but and we were supposed to go out to dinner, and I'm sitting there down. I'm like, wait, hang on, wait, it slowed down, it's buffer. Hang on. Wait. And it's like I held up the entire family because I'm downloading the episode 1 trailer to watch it in a postage stamp sized format.
Yes, it was, but it took so long. And then really same way with the other DSL and stuff once DSL was around. But now you just think I can go to YouTube and pull it up. All those things, pull them up like that. Look at he split.
Well,
I'm a couple of years ago, I got a hold of I have it, it's actually at my feet right now, a DVD VCR recorder, and I took all those old tapes, all those old Star Wars bits and pieces that I recorded, and put them on a DVD. So I've got them all sitting there.
I'm mad at young Steve because for the longest time, my Star Wars that I had on videotape was what was recorded off of CBS.
Oh,
on network television with all the interstitials with the different celebrities and everything, and the thing beforehand and the thing afterhand. And then one weekend when they had a free Disney Channel weekend and Disney was showing Star Wars commercial free, I said, well, I've got to record this. We don't have a blank tape. I'll record on the Star Wars.
I'll get a better version. See, for a tiny little while there, my version of Star Wars was off of the CBS broadcast, but I didn't have the interstitials because I went full Scott Ryfun on it, which was, yes, I paused at every commercial. Well, that's not the movie.
Yeah,
we will watch the movie straight through, and it will be the movie.
Right.
That's it. So, I didn't have any.
We paused most of the commercials, but we brought back on the interstitials because we thought those were so cool.
Yeah, but that wasn't the movie.
This is a commercial-free version I can record that will just have the 800 number pop up every 15 minutes that you can order.
So I got rid of DirecTV. I only had DirecTV because I'm such a crazy Pittsburgh Steelers NFL fan that I wanted to have.
Yeah, they don't have Sunday ticket anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
So I got rid of
YouTube.
That. But with that being said, I've been spending a lot of time just diving into YouTube, where it's like we don't have cable of any sort now, and we have our streaming services, but Lori and I usually watch a lot of shows together. So I'll just pop on YouTube of something that interests me. And I found that at any time you can type in Saturday morning cartoons.
Yes, sir.
And people will have 4 to 5 hours straight of them with the commercials in between.
Yeah.
You want to talk about just some happy times?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. When all of a sudden the Droid Factory gets shown in a commercial and you're like, what? They're talking about the Droid Factory on Saturday morning cartoons? Oh, I mean, just the happiness of those little moments. Just it gets me. And Steve, I will say I watched briefly this afternoon a Spider-Man from I don't even remember what year now. It came up on Saturday morning cartoons, and in the cartoon, I just guess I never really realized how much J. Jonah Jameson's mustache looked like Hitler's mustache.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
it was totally
the cartoon was straight up is like Adolf Hitler is right there in front of you.
60s? Was it the 60s Spider-Man or the 80s Spider-Man?
It was 80s Spider-Man.
Okay, so okay.
Yeah. And it was funny because Mysterio had put something on a lot of people, and Spider-Man was figuring it out. When he did, Mysterio goes, "Now I will play my disco music that will haunt you," and whatever. And Spider-Man looks at him and goes, "I was always more of a Beatles fan." And I thought, wow, that was kind of cool that they brought that into it.
Who was the villain again?
And if you listen to that
Mysterio? Was that right?
It's one of the greatest Spider-Man villains of all time. Mysterio. Scott hates him. I love him. I always loved Mysterio.
Mysterio is great once.
Listen,
he's Danny Verman's favorite villain. because he's
We've
good
already put the
once.
ladies. We've already put the ladies over the top with Riley showing off his legs and Scott, climbing the ladder for them all. Which, by the way, Scott, the whole time you were doing that, I'm like, well, here comes Fell Army. Here comes Fell. But
Is the video going to show up on E-Bomb's World?
Oh, I was actually rooting for it. I'm like, please. But if I were willing to do that and really just knock all the ladies out, I would grab my Mysterio with the custom cape, that's wired and awesome. But anyhow, that music that Mysterio played, I guarantee if you compare it to the rock music or the disco music from the Transformers, it's the same music because it's
the same library.
Yeah, the Marvel Solo library. Yeah. So I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was interesting.
I love digging into that. YouTube has become this weird obsession for me as well. Like I'll just sit and start scrolling through stuff and those Saturday morning cartoons. I know exactly what you're talking about, Joe. I love that kind of stuff.
I am listening right now to the audiobook of the oral history of MTV. So every time they mention a video, I go, I got to take a look at this. And
that's cool.
I got to tell
today
you,
today is our anniversary, August 1st. 1981.
It's also the anniversary of my first ever speeding ticket. August 1st, 1990.
Wow.
How about that? I've gotten 2 speeding tickets in my life, August 1st, 1990 and October 30th, 1992. But
I've got too many to remember. By the way, Scott, you were talking about back on the dial-up days, it was like 45 minutes to a meg or something.
Yeah.
I just, for the fun of it, did a quick speed test. 753 megs per second right now. Kids,
the world we live in.
Kids, you have no idea. You have no idea.
My 14.4 modem was 45 minutes to a meg. And I think by the time I got a 63 or whatever, I got it down to about 15 minutes to a meg. But yeah, and I remember we got
call. You better have a second line. Don't let anybody call.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Yeah. You turn off call. You star whatever it was part of your dial-up procedure because it disabled the call waiting. That was
that stunk. That was terrible.
Now we've become old fogies.
People are listening to the show. Well, I say that. Hopefully people are listening to the show and they're going, what the heck are they talking about?
The kids don't get to do phone pranks anymore. I think one of the biggest problems we have in our society is kids can't do phone pranks anymore.
The dial-up sound. Now that's a sound I've not heard in a long time. A long time. Well, guys, next year is the 25th anniversary of the Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
24 is the 25th anniversary of the Phantom Menace.
Sir.
Wow.
Think about that. 25 years of George Lucas raping our childhood. It's
see, you went there. You went, ain't it cool on everybody? What happened, Harry?
Well, I don't know. I've heard some things that happened to Harry. But no, I'd say that obviously very tongue in cheek. I love the Phantom Menace from my first viewing forward. I always have loved that movie. And 25 years of Duel of the Fates, 25 years of a double-bladed lightsaber, 25 years of yippee, 25 years of just the great. Look,
25 years if that's a good trick.
Yeah, that's spinning. That's a good. Hey, did you catch when they brought that up in Clone Wars early on? It's really it's one of the things that put me over the top for the Clone Wars and the prequels. It's in the first season when they're going after Grievous on his big ship after the whole the ion cannon thing, and Obi-Wan and Anakin break onto the ship, and Obi-Wan says, "Anakin, spinning is not a maneuver," and he says, "But it's a good trick," and they just keep going. It's hard to believe, like when you think of it that way. Like 25 years of Star Wars, the original Star Wars, for that 25th anniversary year, and I was like, what did we do this year? I know.
Yeah.
I mean, we all went to the theater, and I think we all. Joe, did you go to the theater?
Yeah.
Doesn't that feel like so long ago?
No.
And then 25 years doesn't feel long at all, though. Like, is this just being old?
I mean, I think things happen like in your childhood, things happened really slowly. Like a school year took forever.
Yeah.
And summer was like, I'm gonna start turning to Steve Martin and the Jerk. Yesterday, I know it's only known you for a day, but that felt like 4 days. And the second day felt like a day and a half. And the third day you were at your mother. So that just felt like a day. And then this day. So, but when you're a kid,
we need pizza in a cup, though. We do need some more pizza in a cup.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, when you're an adult, man, it flies, and it just
It
flies
does.
and flies and flies. I got a 26-year-old kid walking around my house, just about 26
Wow.
year old kid walking around my house, and he's supposed to be a baby. I mean,
Hey,
you know,
Garrison Ryfun is 26.
he'll be 26 in 17 days. Yeah,
Happy birthday, Garrison Ryfun.
yeah, yeah.
And has he? Look, I'm sorry, we have gone off the rails, Joe. I'm sorry.
Ah,
I'm more of a geek out loud than anything.
That's okay.
Joe, I don't know if you've gotten to interact much with I'm Garrison Ryfun, but I'm Garrison Ryfun is almost a clone of his father when it comes to like the way he describes things. And if he doesn't like something, and so one of my favorite things to do is hear him talk about how he disagree, because I'm like, well, Scott, you created this monster. Deal with it, Dr. Frankenstein. Let's see you deal with it, Frankenstein.
oh, it's
Well,
so funny because
It is.
he'll do
It is
something.
Go
and
ahead.
Mrs. Ryfun will turn to me and she'll like, "That's you. That's your fault. Way to go.
Yeah.
Congratulations."
So I will say this, Steve. My son turns 30 here in just a few weeks, and he's a more talented version of me, but he's me.
Your son put this on your lap. You talking about that son?
What's that?
Son who dropped all this on your lap? That son?
Yes, that son. But yeah, I mean, it goes by in a flash, and yes, they do usually end up being a version of you in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, kind of scary to think about, and it does go fast. I mean, I joke and say, I've got these grandkids and grandkids on the way and everything. There's no way that I feel like I should. And going back to Garrison, I haven't really had the interaction with Garrison. I would like to, and Scott and I have talked about this, doing a Joe, Scott, Joey, and Garrison show.
Yes.
And getting together and talking about having these two crazy dads and them growing up with our crazy fandoms and all that kind of stuff.
And honestly, both of our kids are crazy talented. So I mean,
yeah.
Garrison does things with the Deuce Cast now all the time, and I just sit back and I listen. And it's funny because, like Steve says, I'll listen to him do the Deuce Cast and I go, "That was mine. That was mine. I gave him that." He probably doesn't even know I gave him that, but I gave him that. That's mine.
Oh,
it's just it's a cool thing.
do you remember where you were when you saw that trailer for Phantom Menace? That first,
100% do.
Yes.
The legend. Every journey has a first step.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't get to the theater to see it because I didn't go see Meet Joe Black.
Mm-hmm.
But I was upstairs. We lived in an apartment at the time. I was upstairs it was a 3-bedroom apartment, and we didn't have Garrison. Yeah, or we did have Garrison. No, wait, you know what? Yeah, no, we didn't have. Hang on, we did have Garrison, but we hadn't moved into the apartment yet. So it was right. It's right around that stuff.
So you don't remember any of
the
it
house
then?
yet?
So you
No,
don't remember.
No, we had moved. We had not moved out of the apartment yet into the house. But yeah, so it was in my little bedroom where I would connect to CompuServe and argue with people on the CompuServe forums. And yeah, I was in that little room in that apartment. That was just kind of my office because we didn't have an extra kid at first, and then all of a sudden we did. And his bedroom for like the first 4 months of his life was in the hallway. So we just put him in a crib in the hallway. Like, there you go, because we're moving my stuff out of that room, and we were building a house that was already supposed to be done. So yeah, that's where I was. I was in that little office room in my apartment. Where were you?
I was in my living room of my first house with just me. Well, no, by that time we had Maddie, because Maddie is now 27. So I had Joey and Maddie. I recorded it because I had to come home from work and watch it as soon as I got home from work, because didn't it come on like at 3?
It came on entertainment. It came on Entertainment Tonight.
Oh wow! See, I didn't know any of that.
Did do that?
Didn't know any of that. I didn't go to Meet Joe Black. I didn't do. I was in college-ish, and I was into movies.
There was another movie was on with too. Sorry, Steve. Wasn't there another movie that they came out with?
I'm about to get there.
Okay.
Yeah, I was in college-ish, and I wasn't really following news. I didn't have my own computer, my own internet. I would check email at a friend's house, that kind of thing. But I had a buddy. He wanted to go see the Jerry Springer movie. And yeah, and so I thought, this will be funny. I'll just go with him to watch the stupid Jerry Springer movie. Well, 5 minutes in, he's like, "Let's go." I'm like, okay, buddy, if you want to leave, we'll leave. So we went to the guy and said, can we go see something different? And I want to say it was Enemy of the State with Will Smith and Gene Hackman
Mhm.
that we went over to see. And I had no idea what was about to happen. But the first thing that happened was there was a if you see one movie this summer and it's got like the Emperor's chair in front of the big round window,
Oh yeah,
and he turns around and says, see Star Wars.
it's Dr. Evil.
Dr. Evil
Yeah.
expecting someone else. And but then the actual thing started, and the Lucasfilm logo comes up and every all this stuff, and I'm just like, every legend has been. And I looked at my, because we had gotten to the other movie kind of late, and I thought, and I wasn't even expecting it though, but there it was. And so we sit down and it comes on, and there it is. And I don't remember Enemy of the State. I just remember
movie.
That's your experience that night.
I remember the Fandom Menace,
Yeah.
I remember, like, how can I see this again? I watched this thing over and over again. How do I what movie theater do I have to go into to pick this thing apart? And just the thrill of it's coming, it's official.
Mhm.
It's not. And I'm one of those people. I wasn't disappointed. I wasn't there on opening night to see it again. I wasn't in that space where I had the freedom to just kind of go. It was a Wednesday night when it opened up, and
Tuesday into Wednesday, yeah.
I just wasn't in the place where I could actually go see it in a place where, and or go wait to get tickets, because in those days you couldn't just buy tickets online. You had to go wait to get tickets.
Yeah, remember the lines? The lines were a big deal.
Yeah, and so anyhow, I love the movie and I love that trailer, but I just remember being surprised, and it's one of the last times that I was genuinely shocked by a trailer, because I wasn't expecting it, and there I was in the movie theater and got to see it without knowing it was about to happen.
And there's a jolt, there's a wave that just kind of washes over you when something like that happens.
Yeah.
There's just this thing, and it's this feeling. I remember when we were in the theaters, and it's a smaller version of that. We were in a theater and we were watching Beverly Hills Cop 3. And all of a sudden, there's George.
TL.
And I jumped up and yelled.
Yes.
And I was like, George.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it just something comes over you when that thing happens.
Oh, what
Oh,
about
and that was one of the only good things about that movie anyway. Really.
That's true.
That was not a good
That's
movie.
very true.
or like things like Indian in the Cupboard? I remember just seeing
When Vader shows up in the trailer.
I just remember seeing previews for that on TV, and I'm like, well, there's Darth Vader. I'm like,
yes,
so cool, and just to know that, like, there, because that was a time when it was like, it's still out there, they're still floating around in the ether, some, and maybe one day it'll come back down.
Yeah,
it wasn't long after that, I guess, that it did, but
yep.
The special edition trailers, I knew the special editions were coming because of like Star Wars Insider or what have you, but man, that little TV screen, and it's like, for years, this is how you experience Star Wars. And then the X-Wing comes blowing through to the, and it's just like, you don't, I guess that's here, well, I'm an old man and I don't like the way things are, but that is one of those things. It's like, you see the announcement, indie trailer's up, so you jump over to YouTube, there's indie, it is the same, but it's not the same in a lot of ways. But it was an interesting moment to be surprised by, here you go, here's a little Star Wars. Thank you for leaving the Jerry Springer film. Some Star Wars.
Yeah, and you didn't just have ready access to it at all times, and you were lucky if, like I said, if Entertainment Weekly showed it or something like that. And eventually we had Movie Time, which would show trailers.
And then you mentioned earlier, Joe, the Duel of Fates video on Carson Daly. Like, the minute I found out you could MTV, do you think I wasn't tuning into MTV? Like, that's the only reason I was watching Total Request Live. I didn't care about anything else,
No.
No.
You don't care about the Backstreet Boys.
And I'm earlier when you mentioned video, I thought you were going back to that one before we got into the trailers. The trailer, I'm pretty sure I went in, like a lot of people, saw the trailer of something, went to the next screen, watched the trailer again, and probably didn't watch the movie that I paid for, right? Like, watched it and said, okay, in a few minutes the next one's starting. And I'm pretty sure, because it was not attached to like a ton of movies where I was like, oh, I'm excited, because it came out with a select few movies at the very beginning.
Primarily
And so-
Meet Joe Black. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm not going to go see
No.
this, so I'm going to go watch the trailer because I paid for it. I'm going to go watch that a couple times and walk out. So, but yeah, that was it. It was a good time, and yeah, you know what? It's good to reminisce like this. And does it make us sound a little old? Sure, what the heck? But you know what? That's what we're here for. And for all you young people listening to us, too bad. So.
You know, they did not, in my opinion, do Empire Strikes Back well. I understand why, because COVID.
Mm-hmm.
They did okay. They did get it into theaters finally a couple times. They did some merch and stuff, but I think they did a better job with Return of the Jedi and its 40th than they did with the Empire Strikes Back and its 40th. Do you think they roll out the red carpet for the Phantom Menace's 25th like they did for Jedi this year?
I don't think so. I
do you are they embarrassed of it?
No, they did.
Well, they're selling the toys of it. I mean, they're selling things related to it.
They did a
So
few years back, they did almost like it wasn't quite the 20th because it hadn't been 5 years ago, but they did some releases recently, like old, like vintage, well, original carding, Phantom Menace Black Series.
But Black Series, yep.
Yeah.
They sure did.
It shows that they're testing the waters for that. I know, and again, that's the toys, that's the Hasbro. If Lucasfilm is smart, I would if I were them. You know, we've had this whole, you know, Ahmed Best has been redeemed. He didn't need redemption. We talked about that before. I think I was on this show when that got wrong.
You did.
You know, I think that you're looking at a kinder, gentler fandom that may treat the Phantom Menace great for a 25th anniversary kind of thing. I'd go see it again.
You know, the reception to the 3D release wasn't so hot.
I don't remember them really promoting it though, and that's
I think it also was still too close to the burn, right? I mean, there still was
maybe.
I mean, I don't think the people who were 6 to 12 who saw the Phantom Menace and who absolutely lived it were at the buying point to go see the 3D version. Maybe I'm wrong.
What I remember is just a lot of people, when it came out, a lot of people slagging it. And in fact, it's like the tomato score went down dramatically on the movie when the 3D re-release came out, which kind of ticked me off because I kind of went, you know, to me, a score like that on a film should be contemporaneous. It should be when the film is new and not you going back and revising history and how you feel about the movie. But I remember that it basically dropped from a fresh rating to a rotten rating upon that re-release, and it really made me angry.
I enjoyed it. It's just like these other re-releases though. Nothing has gotten the attention or the rollout that like the special editions did in 97.
But yes.
And even then, like Scott, you talked about it on this very show. Even then they underestimated what it would do and what it would be. And so I think if you put just a little bit of money into some marketing, into some public, just not just fan channels, not just convention stuff, but just a little bit of money into some marketing just in your general audience area, I think you would see these things be able to take a wide release and probably do better than some of the movies that have been released this year.
And don't just fly Riley out and feed him Denny's and expect that to get the word out there, because we know that's but you know, Return of the Jedi is a perfect example of what you're talking about. They put Return of the Jedi out only at AMC theaters. Nobody else got it, and it was very limited, and yet it showed up. I think it made $5 million in 1 week.
Was it AMC or Cinemark?
It was
it was AMC where I was.
Yeah, it was. I was thinking it was AMC. Yeah,
we had to go all the way to a Cinemark somewhere to see it. We didn't have AMC. All right,
that's interesting.
Didn't show it. Yeah,
and the Georgia Theater Company didn't see it. I had to drive to Orange Park. You know my story on that. I drove down to Orange Park, drove back, got Garrison, drove back, came back again. So, but yeah, that movie made in a weekend like $5 million with nothing to show for it, and no real effort put into it, and other than the great poster.
Yeah, and I think that might be embarrassed, but I don't think it's embarrassed. I think they just don't want us to live in it. I think they want Andor and Ahsoka and Mandalorian to be the driving force now, Grogu, and they really do want Rey to be kind of the new Luke Skywalker. And no comments on whether that's good, bad, or otherwise. But the truth of the matter is when you have something that you want to see happen, even as a corporation, these older things, I think they look and say, well, this would just take time and effort away from the stuff we want to do. So rather than put any effort into this, let's just throw the little fans a bone. Let's just throw it, and maybe they'll get their, and so they may do that with Phantom Menace. I know that when Lucasfilm when Disney stuff first started coming out, when Disney Lucasfilm stuff first started coming out, I remember I noticed, starting with The Force Awakens, there was a few mentions of some things, and then in Rogue One, you had a whole Juggernaut tank from the Clone Wars that showed up and that sort of thing. And I may have told you this, Scott, on one of the shows, that I think that there was a subversive effort within the ranks of Lucasfilm to shed a happier or a better light on the prequels. What we've seen in this era with Hayden Christensen, with Ahmed Best, with Gregor, I think we've seen that generation, that prequel generation, come to its own, and the appreciators really start to step to the forefront. And I think it would do them good to, and I'm not a 3D guy, but I say, go ahead, you've got these 3D things, release them. Go ahead and release them. Make a big deal about it, just do it. And
but maybe it takes to the 50th anniversary of A New Hope to where you just blow it all out into one big bash, and you do something to where it's built up around the entire, all of it at one time, a year-long celebration. If I was at Disney, I would do a year-long celebration of the 50th anniversary of Star Wars.
Absolutely.
Put all things out there to get people to the theater.
Yes, but I think what I'm talking about here is a specific celebration of the Phantom Menace.
Sure.
A specific celebration of it for its 25th anniversary. I agree. It's funny. I remember, I'm going to name drop my buddy Jack McDevitt when it was out. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Nebula Award-winning author Jack McDevitt.
Hey, pick that up. Your wife doesn't want that sitting on the floor.
Sorry. But he and I were at lunch one day when episode 1 was out, and he's like, I haven't seen, he's a science fiction author. I haven't seen Star Wars yet. I don't think I'm going to go. And I said, why? He said, well, I hear it's bombing. And I went, Jack, it's gone past $400 million. And at the time, I think 3 movies in history had done that. It was E.T., Star Wars. Well, it was Titanic, E.T., Star Wars. No, it was Titanic and Star Wars. I'm sorry. I think E.T. had not gotten to 400 at that juncture. So yeah, it was like one of 3 movies in history that had made $400 million. And I don't even think 10 movies had made $300 million at that point. So Star Wars did quite well, but the episode 1 did quite well. But the word on the street was it was a bomb. Yeah. It had flopped. It had done horribly. It hung on all summer. We were still going to see it in July from a May release. So, again, there was a vocal contingent that hated that movie. And I think they kind of peed in the pool for everybody else. That was not a hated film at the time
at all. And it got re-released in November of that year. It hung around for a while because it was still the days when things would hang around, but it had already been to the dollar theaters on. I remember it getting a re-release in November. I saw that movie upwards of 17 times in the theater.
I saw it 7.
And then I would also theater hop and just to watch the last battle, the last lightsaber battle, after we'd seen something else. If we'd gone to see something else, I'd go in and take a peek at the Phantom Menace.
Ryan went to New York City that summer, and he came back with a VHS bootleg from the streets of New York.
Sweet.
Did Seinfeld shoot that? Because he does great work.
It's the full George Costanza in the theater, people cheering, somebody getting up to pee. I mean, it's everything you want it to be. Yeah. And again, for a movie that was so hated, why is it that I could not stop dubbing copies off for people who were desperate to have? I just, of course, admitted to distributing the works of, but believe me, I paid for. I've bought so many copies of it at this point. I think I've paid for it.
Yeah. That's the thing. You look at that movie and people weren't coming out of that movie hating. They were coming out of the movie rating and it left you with that feeling of Star Wars. This is Star Wars. And honestly, it left me with a feeling that none of the sequels did. I remember it took me 7 times watching The Force Awakens to be okay with The Force Awakens and come around and be like, I like this movie, to the point that I was really looking forward to The Last Jedi. and The Last Jedi hit, and I'm like, wow, they've really messed things up. And then, so that, and it's sad, to me, I feel sad about it. I don't feel angry. I feel sad because I want that excitement that I had going into Revenge of the Sith. I want that excitement that I had. Listen, just the trailers for those prequel movies, man. Do you remember the episode 2 teaser, the breathing trailer, they called it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just change shot.
Image with each breath. Yeah.
It's just like, so yeah, I don't think they will, Scott. I think there's still a stigma around it. I think it'll be a low-key celebration. I think it'll be a little bit less than what we've seen for Return of the Jedi, but a little bit more maybe than what we got to see for Empire because of the COVID and everything.
I'll go to the theater. I will pay to see it, and I will pay for people to come with me and see it.
Yeah, I'll gladly go sit in the theater and watch it.
100%.
You may be able to convince me to go see Rise of Skywalker in the theater someday.
I'll take you because I love that goofy ass movie.
Scott, language.
I love that movie. It's and I've used this analogy a bunch, I know, but it's literally you go to somebody's house and they've got a 3-year-old kid, and the 3-year-old kid is so trying to impress you. Look what I can do. Look what I can do. Look. Yeah. And it's that movie. It's trying to impress everybody, and it's trying to make everybody love it.
That movie is when you invited your friend over to play Star Wars with you, and they got into some weird convoluted thing, but you're in the middle of it, and you're like, all right, let's just run with it, Hey, but what about this? Don't worry about it.
Yeah, just do it.
Now, is this Lando's daughter? Who knows?
Yes, the Force can turn you into pigs. It's okay. Just do it. Just
Yeah, that's the movie. That's the first Star Wars movie I went and saw with Brent, and I had no idea Brent was a Star Wars fan until weeks before that movie, and I had an extra ticket, and he came along, and that's where the whole Brent being a member of the Rule of the Galaxy crew kicked in because of that was in December of 2019, and we started in January of 2020. So kind of weird how that all came together. But
you can point to big moments in all these Star Wars movies, I think, that resonated with so many. To me, the original Star Wars is just that the whole thing is that moment for me. Like I can quote the movie backwards and forwards. You bring up a moment, I'm like, yeah, that's my favorite part of the whole movie. And then you bring up another one, I'm like, yeah, that's my favorite part of the whole movie.
Yeah.
Empire is, of course, the Luke, no, I'm your father moment. Jedi is I think for me, it's the moment where he says, I'm a Jedi like my father before me, moments that just kind of make you, or yes, or, whatever. And then when you get to the prequels, you had those moments like the double-bladed lightsaber, even though that was spoiled by the music video and and stuff we saw on the shelves and everything, that's still such a huge moment. Yoda sparking a lightsaber in episode 2 is such a fantastic, great thing. And then even though it was in the trailer, Lord Vader, yes, my master, rise. That even though he doesn't say it when he comes up, but the whole birth of Vader in that suit and everything,
they got rid of his sissy hands.
Yes, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. It's sad. It's tragic, but it's still also awesome because there's the breathing, there's the mask, there's the, it's just, and
we've been working towards this. And
quite frankly, they had moments. Chewie, we're home was supposed to be that moment for us in Force Awakens, and it's still a great moment.
It's a great trailer moment.
But in the movie, it wasn't that great a moment. It was because of the way you had to get there to it, and then you didn't really have. And I don't want to. Again, I'm not crapping on this. I don't mean to crap on the sequel trilogy. For me, I never felt the way I felt coming out of those prequels. At any of the subsequent movies. And I'm gonna hope that just like the prequel generation, although I shouldn't have been the prequel generation. I was, because I was there with my son and it meant something to go and see those movies with him. I'm going to hope that there's a group of people that the sequels does this same thing for them. I mean, I hope that they're going to look in 20 years and they're telling people, oh, when this scene happened or when this line happened, I'm going to hope Rey Skywalker. Yeah. When she said Rey Skywalker, I'm like, yes. The thing,
And then Luke and Leia floated up in the skyline like a bad lock-in movie.
the thing,
Yes. Oh, what were we talking? Grease at the end of Grease?
is like I said it when we walked down. I enjoyed the last. I mean, not last. I enjoyed the Rise of Skywalker, but I said it on the podcast. Somebody saw Endgame.
No.
You know, because
On
on
your
your
left.
left moment, you had your portals moment, you had your and I am inevitable, and I am Iron Man. I am the Sith, and I am all the Jedi. And you had those moments and everything, and then we're going to get in a loop of her healing him and him healing her and dying, and this back and forth healing. And I'm like, well, this is now the loop we're stuck in for all eternity. But yeah, it was. It just, unfortunately, the lack of, they paid the price for their lack of vision. That's what
I would agree.
that's what
I'm hoping this downtime is giving them time to all come together and put that vision together. But
I think Ahsoka has the opportunity to be something really neat. I'm
I'm
not
hoping.
special, but really neat, because I think they really are trying to lean into the old school fans as much as they can and tell kind of their version of Heir to the Empire, with the characters they have at hand. And I really do think that, it's going to be kind of like the official closeout of Rebels. And so we'll get to see some live action characters that those of us who watched the show really enjoyed, and Scott, I would really encourage you to try. I know you've got year 5 of Clone Wars, but man, once you get through those last couple of seasons, I know are abbreviated seasons of Clone Wars. But I'm telling you, Rebels it's really rough in the first season.
Mm-hmm.
Once they get going, man.
I watched originally the first season of Rebels, and I watched part of the second season. I think I stopped after the Jaws episode.
Yeah.
And
with Rex.
That was the one they were out with the Rex and the team out on the desert.
Yeah, and it pretty much had
yeah. But yeah, I would just commend to you that because as it ramps up and you get into Thrawn, Thrawn's not all about art and stuff.
Thank goodness.
But it's really good. It's really well told. Thrawn becomes that thing that Darth Vader can't be in that show. Darth Vader can't be the bad guy who's getting beat every week.
No.
That's really why they needed the Inquisitors. They needed someone that could be outsmarted me. I likened it to the Pac-Man cartoon back in the day, because you had your ghosts that you had to see, and so they were the lackeys for the big dude, who was never a video game or anything, but he could never be defeated. Or Dr. Claw's lackeys, you had someone pulling the strings, and they were all inept, and that's kind of what you have. Not that Thrawn's inept, but like he's someone that's like, all right, he can be defeated, but he's a formidable foe. And it's really, I hate to say how good it got, but it really did.
It did.
Yeah,
it did. The Kanan and Jarrus part, honestly, is some of my favorite Star Wars during those few episodes around Kanan and the end before Thrawn and all that. So yeah,
I was honestly sold on the show. I thought I wasn't going to like it. I was done. I wasn't going to have anything to do with it. And then in that right from the first episode, when he steps up to spark his lightsaber for the first time in years.
Oh yeah.
And that blaster bolt comes out and he just does this kind of thing. Like, it's not some weird cool Matrix thing. He just goes, nyeh. And I'm like, that's Jedi right there. That's Jedi. And then he sparks up and the guy's like, concentrate fire on the Jedi. Like, I'm in it. I'm into this, and it's that moment, that realization of like, oh wow, I'm into this. Okay, I'll go along with this ride, and it just got better it just like all the Filoni stuff.
It did.
It found its voice and got better, And I think if there's one thing about Filoni is he takes a little bit with these series to kind of figure out what he wants it to be, those animated series, and then once he does, he just settles in and rolls.
Yeah,
Brent,
and you can see a real increase in the quality on Clone Wars as time goes on.
Oh, definitely.
It's dramatic.
Brent has always said the Rebel show is all about found family, and then that family growing, and each character having character development throughout the 4 seasons.
That's true, because that's one thing, the temptation I think would have been to, especially with Disney Star Wars, the way that it seemed to get treated was to really just focus on one or two of those characters, and you really got them all fleshed out at some point or another. Now it's, in some seasons, like Hera takes more of a back seat for a large part of the season of some seasons than I'd one or two, but you still get her whole backstory and her her relationships and her family and all that stuff, and when it just all comes together, it just all comes together in a really nice way, I think. And
Agreed.
And some of the stuff you've seen in Mandalorian and other places, they become moments of like, oh, really cool. That's cool to see that. And so I think Ahsoka's just going to be kind of a continuation of that. And I'm okay with that. I'm looking forward. I'm hoping that it's something exciting for sure.
And it's not far away at all. Just 2 or 3 weeks away. So, well, I'm going to cut it short because even though Steve wants us to go another hour and a half, I got to get him work tomorrow, and then I was going to say
tomorrow. You're not cutting it short because I was on the verge of bowing out. So
yeah, Scott's got to get earlier than me.
Yeah.
So any closing thoughts from you two gentlemen? It's been a blast. I'm so glad Riley is back in the fold of everything again, and can't wait to do some more things hear him do things with you guys and do some things with him myself because he's just a great young man.
Yeah, my closing thoughts are: let's do this tomorrow night. Let's do it again.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's try it. One of you guys lead it, and I'll do it from my phone. How's that?
Okay,
perfect.
I'm there.
All right.
Where are you traveling to, Joe?
Where are you going, Joe?
Columbus, Ohio.
Wow.
It is Joey's first comedy tour night tomorrow night, Columbus, Ohio, and I'm going to go with him.
The exotic land of Columbus.
That's right. Where you're in the middle of Ohio. Okay. Anyway, guys, it's always a pleasure. I can't thank you two enough for always being a part of what we do at Rule the Galaxy. And as I've told you a million times, you guys are two of the main reasons why we're doing this. So thank you so much, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You got it. Hey, for Rule the Galaxy fans, followers, listeners, or maybe just for our small group of people who enjoy hanging out and talking about Star Wars, until next week, or until the show that Scott or Steve gets me on tomorrow, may the Force be with you.